Hello friends. Welcome to the DXD Tales. How are you all? So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Issei was chosen by the chaos system to rule heaven and hell. Also be sure to subscribe and like this video. Now let's begin. Chapter 1. The Vessel of Chaos. The crimson spear of light pierced Issei Hyodo's chest with surgical precision. A hot lance of agony that somehow felt both scalding and freezing at once. Time slowed as he stumbled backward, one hand reaching toward the beautiful raven-haired woman who had just murdered him, her wings, actual wings. Black as midnight, unfurling behind her like a macabre halo. "I'm truly sorry, Yuma." "No," Rainer said, though her violet eyes held no remorse. "You were a sweet date, but you possess something dangerous. A sacred gear that could threaten us." "Nothing personal." Issei tried to speak, to ask why, but blood bubbled over his lips instead. His knees hit the concrete of the abandoned fountain plaza where their date had culminated. The moon hung impossibly large overhead, witness to his bewildering end. "This can't be happening. I finally get a girlfriend, and she kills me. What the hell is a sacred gear?" Darkness crawled across his vision as Rainer's silhouette dissolved into the night. The concrete beneath him felt suddenly distant, as though he were floating. The pain receded, replaced by a bone-deep cold that seemed to emanate from somewhere beyond his physical form. Is this death? He wondered, his consciousness fragmenting. What a stupid way to die. The world collapsed inward, and Issei Hyodo ceased to be. Until he wasn't. Awareness returned in fragments, not in the physical realm but somewhere else. Issei found himself suspended in absolute darkness. Yet he could somehow see perfectly. No body. No sensation, just pure consciousness drifting in a void that felt both infinitely vast and intimately close. Issei Hyodo. The voice wasn't heard so much as felt, vibrating through the very essence of whatever remained of him. It wasn't male or female, young or old, it simply was, primordial and absolute. Where am I? Issei attempted to speak, surprised when his thoughts manifested as communication. Everywhere, nowhere. The boundary between what is and what could be. Pinpricks of light began to materialize around him, expanding into swirling galaxies. Then contracting into microscopic particles, then reforming into what appeared to be neural pathways, the universe and consciousness reflected in each other. Am I dead? Your mortal vessel has ceased function. Your essence remains. So, heaven or hell then? Issei would have gulped if he had a throat. Despite his occasional browsing of inappropriate websites, he'd never considered himself a bad person. But being murdered by a girl with black wings didn't bode well for his final destination. A sound like laughter, if laughter could be composed of supernovas and black holes colliding, resonated through the void. Neither. Both. You stand before the chaos system. The what now? Before the concept of heaven. Before the notion of hell. There was chaos, not disorder, but pure potential. I am that potential given form and function. The darkness around Issei began to shift, revealing patterns of light that formed complex, fractal structures. Within them, he glimpsed flashes of reality. Angels with golden wings soaring through crystalline spires, demons lounging amid flames that burned but did not consume, humans living their lives, oblivious to the powers moving around them. Every 10,000 years, I select a vessel. A mortal whose nature contains the seeds of true balance. You have been chosen. Issei would have blinked in confusion if he had eyelids. Me, I'm just a normal high school student. There's nothing special. You possess contradictions that mirror existence itself. Perversion and purity, selfishness and sacrifice, weakness and strength. You contain multitudes, Issei Hyodo, even if you have not yet recognized them. The cosmic display shifted, showing Issei memories of his own life he'd forgotten, defending a child from bullies when he was young. Despite being outnumbered, sharing his lunch with a stray cat even when he was hungry himself, fantasizing about a harem while simultaneously dreaming of finding true love. But I don't know anything about heaven or hell or any of this. Knowledge will come, power will flow, the chaos system will merge with your essence, and you will become more than mortal, more than divine, more than infernal. You will be the fulcrum upon which the cosmic balance rests. Fear and exhilaration warred within whatever remained of Issei's self. What if I refuse? Silence stretched between them, a pause containing eons. Then oblivion awaits, and another will be chosen in time. The choice is yours, Issei Hyodo. Dissolution or ascension. The images around him shifted again, showing what appeared to be previous vessels: a Babylonian priestess with eyes like galaxies, a Roman centurion whose shadow contained multitudes, a Renaissance philosopher whose quill wrote reality into being, and others. Stretching back beyond human history, Issei considered for what felt like both seconds and centuries. He thought about his parents, who would mourn him, his unfulfilled dreams, the mystery of what had happened to him, and why Rainer had killed him. If I accept, can I go back? Can I find out why this happened? You will return, though not as you were. Your questions will find answers, though they may lead to greater questions. Such is the nature of chaos. Issei gathered whatever courage existed in this formless state. Then I accept. The voice seemed to smile, though how Issei perceived this remained a mystery even to himself. Then let it be so. The darkness imploded, and Issei felt himself being simultaneously compressed into a singularity and expanded to encompass universes. Knowledge poured into him. Ancient languages, forgotten civilizations, the true structure of reality, the origins of heaven and hell. Power surged through him, the ability to manipulate reality, to move between dimensions, to command both divine light and infernal flame. Most critically, understanding crystallized within him, the truth about the supernatural world. The delicate balance between realms, and his role in maintaining it all. Issei Hyodo screamed as he was unmade and remade, dying and being born simultaneously, the chaos system weaving itself into every particle of his being. And then, abruptly, he was back. Issei gasped, his lungs burning as they remembered how to breathe. His eyes snapped open to the same plaza where he'd died, the dried blood still staining the concrete beneath him. The moon hung overhead, though it appeared to have moved in its journey across the sky. Hours had passed, perhaps. He sat up, examining his hands. They looked the same, yet felt utterly different, as though they could reshape mountains if he wished it. His chest, where Rainer's light spear had pierced him, was whole, though a strange mark had appeared there, an intricate symbol that seemed to shift between patterns when he wasn't looking directly at it. The chaos mark, knowledge supplied from somewhere within. The physical manifestation of your connection to the system. Issei stood, surprised at how steady he felt. His body was his own, yet enhanced in ways he couldn't fully comprehend. Strength coiled in his muscles, power hummed beneath his skin, and knowledge flowed through his mind like a river that had always been there, dammed until now. He understood now what Rainer was, a fallen angel, one of many supernatural beings sharing the world with humanity. He knew of devils and angels, of gods from countless pantheons, of the complex politics and ancient treaties that governed their interactions. And he knew his purpose: to rule heaven and hell, to bring balance where there had been none for millennia. This is insane, he whispered, his voice sounding different to his own ears, deeper, more resonant. Yet it is reality. The chaos system responded within his mind. Your reality now. Issei looked down at his clothes, the simple outfit he'd worn for his date, now bloodstained and torn. With a thought, the fabric rippled and transformed, becoming a seamless black suit that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Intricate silver patterns flickered across its surface, reminiscent of circuit boards one moment and ancient runes the next. He felt a weight at his left wrist and found a watch there, though watch was an insufficient description. The face displayed not just time, but possibilities, owing him potential futures that shifted with each choice made across multiple realms. I need to go home, he said, thinking of his parents. They must be worried. Time flows differently between realms. In the human world, you have been missing for only hours. In your absence, reality has adjusted. Your parents believe you are attending an overnight study session. Issei frowned. That's convenient. The chaos system maintains balance. Small adjustments prevent unnecessary disruption. Your human connections remain important, Issei Hyodo. They will anchor you as you assume your greater role. Issei turned his gaze toward his home but stopped when he sensed a presence behind him, moving fast, intent, and armed. He pivoted, instinctively raising a hand. A barrier of swirling energy materialized, half golden light, half abyssal darkness. just as a silver blade sliced through the air where his head had been moments before. The weapon struck his barrier and rebounded with a sound like a church bell underwater. Its wielder, a young woman with copper skin and obsidian hair pulled into a severe braid, stumbled back, surprise flashing across her face before discipline reasserted itself. "What are you?" she demanded, adjusting her grip on the ornate short sword. Silver crosses dangled from her belt, and a larger crucifix hung around her neck, pulsing with faint light. Issei studied her, the chaos system providing analysis. Serafina Cruz. Human. Vatican-trained demon hunter from an ancient lineage of exorcists. Skilled in anti-supernatural combat. Current mission. Invest. I gate the surge of power that accompanied your transformation. Asterisk. I could ask you the same, Issei replied, lowering his barrier but remaining alert. Most people don't greet strangers with swords to the neck. Her dark eyes narrowed. Most people don't emit enough supernatural energy to light up my detection wards from across the city. You're not human, not anymore. Not entirely, Issei acknowledged, seeing no point in lying. But I'm not your enemy, Serafina Cruz. She stiffened. How do you know my name? The same way I know you're from the Vatican's 9th Exorcist Division. The me way I know that crucifix was blessed by Pope Innocent III himself. He stepped forward, noting how she maintained her fighting stance. I know many things now. Stay back, she warned, her blade glowing with holy energy. Whatever you are, I'm authorized to eliminate any demonic threat. Issei stopped, raising an eyebrow. Do I feel demonic to you? Serafina hesitated, confusion crossing her features. No. And yes, and something else entirely. Her free hand moved to the crucifix at her neck. You register as divine and infernal simultaneously. That's impossible. Apparently not. Issei gestured to the night around them. We could stand here trading threats until dawn, or we could talk like civilized beings. Your choice. For a long moment, tension crackled between them. Then, with visible reluctance, Serafina lowered her blade, though she didn't sheath it. Talk, then. You have 2 minutes before I decide whether to continue trying to kill you. Issei smiled, finding her directness refreshing. My name is Issei Hyodo. Until today, I was a normal high school student. Then I was killed by a fallen angel named Rainer. Rainer. Recognition flickered in Serafina's eyes. We've been tracking her cell for weeks. They're operating outside Grigori Authority. Grigori, the organization of fallen angels, Issei nodded, accessing the knowledge that now resided within him. She killed me because she believed I possessed a sacred gear that threatened her faction. And did you? Issei shrugged. I don't know. Whatever I might have had was superseded when the chaos system chose me as its vessel. Serafina's posture shifted subtly, her grip on her weapon tightening. The chaos system is a myth. A bedtime story the Vatican elders tell initiates. All myths contain truth, Issei countered. With a thought, he manifested a small sphere of energy above his palm, one half radiant white light, the other deepest shadow. Heaven and hell, divine and infernal, 2 sides of the same coin. Both necessary for balance. The exorcist stared at the sphere, calculation replacing hostility in her expression. If you're telling the truth, and that's a massive if, and you're claiming to be the arbiter mentioned in the Apocrypha of Saint Germain, and there shall come one who walks between realms, bearing the mark of primordial chaos, with authority to bind an Us in heaven and earth and the depths below, Issei quoted, the knowledge flowing through him. Though Street Germain took some poetic license with the translation. Serafina's sword lowered further, professional curiosity overcoming caution. The Vatican Council will want to verify this claim. They'll demand proof, demonstrations of your authority. They're welcome to try, Issei said, his voice carrying unintended power that made the air vibrate. But they do not have authority over me. No earthly or otherworldly power does. I answer to the balance alone. The conviction in his voice surprised even him. The meek high school student was rapidly receding, replaced by something more. Not arrogance, but certainty, bone deep and unshakable. Serafina studied him for a long moment, her tactical assessment almost visible behind her eyes. Finally, she sheathed her sword in a fluid motion. My orders are to report, not engage. The Vatican will make its own determination. She retrieved a business card from her pocket and held it out. But when the supernatural world realizes what you are, what you claim to be, they will come for you, one way or another. If you need objective information, call this number. Issei took the card, noting the simple cross embossed on its surface and a phone number, nothing else. Thank you, Serafina Cruz. I suspect we'll meet again. She nodded curtly. Count on it. With a final assessing look, she turned and disappeared into the shadows of the park, moving with the silent efficiency of someone trained to hunt creatures of the night. Issei watched her go, sensing her continued observation from the darkness. The encounter had been enlightening. His first interaction as the Chaos Vessel had established both his new nature and the likely response of the supernatural world. The Vatican was just one faction among many, and if an exorcist had sensed his emergence, others would not be far behind. You handled that well, the Chaos System observed. The exorcist will report to her superiors, who will contact their supernatural liaisons. Word will spread. Is that a problem? Issei asked aloud, beginning to walk toward home. It is inevitable. Your presence will disrupt established power structures. Those who benefit from the current imbalance will resist most strongly. As Issei walked, he became aware of eyes upon him, not Serafina's human gaze, but others. Watching from beyond normal perception. In the sky above, a faint shimmer revealed angelic scouts maintaining distance. From the shadows between buildings, demonic observers tracked his movements. Even the trees seemed to bend slightly toward him, nature itself responding to his altered essence. They are assessing. Soon, they will act. Good, Issei replied, feeling power thrumming through him. Eager for purpose. I have questions for heaven and hell alike. As he approached his home, the modest house where he had grown up, now seeming somehow smaller and more fragile, Issei felt a strange doubling of his perception. He was simultaneously the teenage boy who had lived here all his life and something ancient and new, seeing the simple structure through Yes, that had witnessed the birth of stars. His parents would be inside, blissfully unaware of their son's transformation, protected by the Chaos System's subtle manipulation of reality. They would see him as they always had, while his true nature remained hidden from mortal perception. For now, he would maintain that illusion. There would be time enough for revelations. Issei paused at the gate, looking back at the night sky. Somewhere up there, heaven's hierarchies were surely buzzing with reports of his emergence. Below, hell's circles would be calculating responses to this unexpected development. The fallen angels, the various pantheons, the supernatural races, all would soon be forced to acknowledge the return of the Chaos Vessel. Let them come, he whispered, a smile playing at his lips. It's time for things to change. Quote, with that declaration hanging in the air like a challenge to the universe itself, Issei Hyodo, newly appointed ruler of heaven and hell, walked through his front door and called out, I'm home. Dawn broke over Kuo town with unusual brilliance, rays of sunlight refracting through crystal clear air to create prismatic patterns across buildings and streets. Birds sang with increased vigor, and flowers seemed to bloom more vibrantly wherever Issei passed. Nature itself recognized the change in reality, responding to the Chaos System's influence through its new vessel. Issei walked toward Kuo Academy, his school uniform feeling strange against skin that now contained multitudes. He had spent the night absorbing knowledge, the Chaos System feeding him information about the supernatural world in dreams that felt more real than his waking life had ever been. He now understood the true structure of creation, not the simplified version taught by human religions, but the complex, interconnected reality of multiple realms existing in dimensional harmony. Heaven was not a single paradise but a hierarchical bureaucracy of divine domains. Hell was not merely a place of punishment but a feudal collection of territories ruled by ancient powers. And between them, countless other realms, purgatory, limbo, the Wilds, and domains belonging to pantheons from cultures across human history. All connected, all necessary, all part of the balance he was now responsible for maintaining. Yo, Issei, a familiar voice broke through his contemplation. Matsuda, one of his friends and fellow members of the school's unofficially named, perverted trio, jogged up beside him. You missed it yesterday. We found this perfect spot to peek into the Kendo Club's changing room. Behind him, Motohama adjusted his glasses with a lecherous grin. The angles were perfect. We could see everything. Issei felt a strange disconnection. Just days ago, Old have enthusiastically joined their peeping schemes without a second thought. Now, with cosmic awareness flowing through him, their adolescent antics seemed simultaneously childish and endearing. Sorry guys, I was busy. He replied, manufacturing a smile that felt mechanical. Matsuda eyed him suspiciously. You're acting weird. Did something happen with Yuma-chan? Did you actually score? The name sent a jolt through Issei. Yuma, the alias Rainer had used before murdering him. He probed his friend's perceptions through the Chaos System's abilities and discovered something disturbing. Their memories had been altered. They remembered him mentioning a girlfriend named Yuma, but the details were hazy, as though viewed through frosted glass. Fallen angel memory manipulation, * the system provided. Standard procedure after operations involving humans. Rainer erased most traces of her presence. No, Issei said carefully. Nothing happened with Yuma. We broke up. Aw man, that sucks, Motohama said. Though neither friend seemed particularly invested in his romantic disappointment. There's always the next one, right? Right, Issei agreed absently, his attention caught by something else entirely. As they approached the school gates, he sensed supernatural presences ahead, powerful ones, carefully concealed from ordinary perception but blazingly obvious to his enhanced awareness. Two primary auras, both unmistakably demonic, though not in the malevolent sense. These were devils, members of the underworld's nobility based on the complexity of their magical signatures. Rias Grimori and Sona Citri, * the Chaos System identified. Heiresses to prominent devil houses. They administer this territory under the modern devil faction's agreements with other supernatural powers. Issei spotted them immediately. Two impossibly beautiful girls surrounded by equally attractive entourages. One had striking crimson hair that cascaded down her back, the other short black hair and glasses that gave her a stern, intelligent appearance. Both turned to look directly at him as he passed through the gates, their expressions shifting from casual observation to intense focus in an instant. They felt his power, even carefully contained as it was, and recognized something unprecedented had entered their domain. Who's that with Rias Senpai? Matsuda whispered, following Issei's gaze. The blonde guy. Man, why do all the pretty girls hang out with pretty boys? Issei barely heard him, his attention fixed on the blonde young man standing beside Rias Grimori. Unlike the others, his aura wasn't demonic, it radiated divine energy, carefully dampened but unmistakable. Yuto Kiba, former Holy Sword Project subject. Now a devil serving the Grimori heir. An interesting contradiction in himself. Issei maintained a neutral expression as he passed the supernatural students, though inwardly his mind raced with implications. Devils running a Japanese high school. A former church weapon reincarnated as a devil. The supernatural world was more complex and integrated with human society than even the Chaos System's downloaded knowledge had prepared him for. Issei Hyodo. The voice, cultured, feminine, with undertones of power, stopped him in his tracks. Rias Grimori had spoken his name, not as a greeting but as a statement, almost a challenge. He turned slowly, meeting her teal-blue eyes. Up close, her beauty was even more apparent. Flawless skin, perfect features, an aura of confidence and authority that made other students give her a wide berth. Rias Grimori, he replied, matching her tone, heiress to the House of Grimori, one of the 72 pillars of the underworld. Surprise flickered across her face, quickly concealed. Beside her, the blonde boy, Kiba, tensed subtly, while a petite white-haired girl shifted her stance to something more defensive. You seem well informed for a human, Rias said, her smile not reaching her eyes. Or should I say, for whatever you currently are. Whispers erupted among the watching students, misinterpreting the exchange as some sort of romantic confrontation. The school's idol speaking to one of the perverted trio was unprecedented enough to fuel gossip for weeks. I'd prefer we discuss this somewhere more private, Issei suggested, noting the growing audience. Unless you want to explain devils, angels, and cosmic balance to your fan club. Rias considered him for a long moment before nodding once, sharply. The old school building. After classes, she turned to the black-haired girl with glasses. Sona, would you join us? Sona Sitri adjusted her glasses, her analytical gaze dissecting Issei. Absolutely. This development requires immediate attention. The school bell rang, dispersing the gathering crowd. As students hurried to their classrooms, Issei found himself walking beside Kiba, who had maneuvered to escort him. I've never felt an aura like yours before, the devil said quietly. Not human, not devil, not angel, what exactly are you? Issei smiled enigmatically. The better question might be, what are we all becoming? The day passed in a blur of mundane lessons that seemed increasingly irrelevant to Issei's new reality. Algebra and literature felt like child's play compared to the cosmic understanding now residing in his mind. Yet he performed perfectly in every class, accessing knowledge beyond what any high school curriculum could provide. His teachers noticed the change, exchanging concerned glances when he solved complex equations without showing his work or referenced obscure literary theories not covered in their textbooks. His classmates, too, sensed something different, the way he moved with newfound grace, how his eyes seemed to see beyond what was physically present. The subtle authority in his voice when he spoke. By lunchtime, rumors had spread that Hyodo had either experienced a personality-altering head injury or was possessed by some genius spirit. Both theories were surprisingly close to the truth. As final period ended, Issei felt a gentle tug on his consciousness, a summons of sorts, coming from the old school building. Rias Gramori was calling her peerage together, preparing for their meeting. He sensed anxiety in the summons, carefully controlled but present nonetheless. They fear what you represent, the chaos system observed. To devils, heavenly power is anathema. To angels, hellish energy is corruption. You embody both, threatening their fundamental understanding of reality. Then I'll have to expand their understanding. Issei murmured, gathering his belongings. The old school building stood apart from the main campus, a Victorian-style structure that seemed out of place among the modern architecture surrounding it. As Issei approached, he sensed the magical barriers surrounding it, concentric layers of protection, warning, and concealment spells woven together with considerable skill. Devil magic, primarily, some human sorcery integrated as well. Impressive for one so young. Rather than attempting to dismantle these protections, Issei simply walked through them, acknowledging their presence while gently informing them that he was exempt from their restrictions. The magic rippled around him like water around a stone, recognizing authority greater than that of its casters. Inside, the building's interior betrayed its outward appearance. Luxurious furnishings, expensive artwork, and subtle magical enhancements created an atmosphere of aristocratic refinement. Issei led the concentration of supernatural energy to a room at the end of a long hallway, where voices engaged in tense discussion fell silent as he approached. He knocked once, then entered without waiting for permission. The Occult Research Club, the Devil's Cover organization, had gathered in what appeared to be their clubroom. Rias Gramori sat behind an ornate desk, with Sona Sitri standing beside her. Around them stood their respective peerages, the reincarnated devils who served them. Issei Hyodo, Rias greeted him, maintaining an appearance of calm control. Thank you for coming. Your invitation was difficult to ignore, he replied, taking in the room's occupants with a sweeping glance. Though, invitation might be too gentle a term for a compulsion ward keyed to my aura. Sona's eyes narrowed slightly. You detected that. I detected everything. The boundary alerts, the combat-ready positioning of your peerages, the communication circles connecting you to your respective families. Issei remained standing, his posture relaxed but alert. Prudent precautions, given what you've sensed in me. And what exactly would that be? Rias leaned forward, her crimson hair falling like a curtain around her face. Your aura contains elements that should be mutually exclusive. Divine and infernal energies in perfect harmony, plus something older. Issei considered his response carefully. These young devils were important figures in their realm's politics. How they reported this encounter would influence the underworld's initial reaction to his emergence. I am the current vessel of the chaos system, he stated simply, chosen to bring balance to heaven, hell, and all realms between. The room temperature plummeted as Rias's control over her power slipped momentarily. Ice crystals formed on the windows, and the shadows deepened around Sona, whose composed expression had given way to open shock. The chaos system is a legend, she said, recovering first. A myth from before the Great War. Many myths have awakened recently, Issei countered. The Welsh dragon, the vanishing dragon, the twilight healing. Why not the chaos system? A petite white-haired girl, Kaneko Tuju. His enhanced senses identified, a nekosho disguising her true nature, spoke up for the first time. Feels true, she said simply. Old power. Very old. Rias rose from her chair, magi. Sea crackling around her fingertips. Not an attack, but a response to stress. If you are what you claim, why reveal yourself to us? The underworld's political structure would be your concern, not two high school devils. Issei smiled. Because you're interesting. Young heirs to major houses, operating in human territory, gathering diverse peerages instead of traditional devil servants. You represent the future direction of the underworld. He gestured around the room. A fallen nun, a holy sword wielder, a nekosho, a half-vampire, you collect the outcasts and give them purpose. That approach IGNS with the balance I'm tasked with creating. Sona and Rias exchanged glances, some unspoken communication passing between them. What do you intend to do? Sona asked directly. If you truly hold authority over both heaven and hell, your actions will have profound consequences. First, I'll establish my position, Issei replied honestly. Heaven's bureaucracy and hell's nobility will resist an outsider claiming authority. Then I'll address the most critical imbalances, the extinct devil houses, heaven's depleted ranks after God's death, the rogue fallen angels, the isolated pantheons. God's death, gasped a blonde girl in a nun's outfit, Ossia Argento, former holy maiden, recently reincarnated as a devil. That's impossible. God cannot die. Issei looked at her with genuine compassion. I'm sorry, Ossia Argento. God, the biblical God, died during the Great War. The Archangel Michael has maintained the heaven system in his absence, concealing this truth to prevent chaos among believers. Asia swayed on her feet, her face draining of color. Heba steadied her with a gentle hand on her shoulder, though his own expression had hardened at this revelation. You're disrupting foundations of faith that have sustained millions, Rias said sharply. These truths, if they are truths, could destabilize human society. Which is why I'm telling you. Not broadcasting it globally, Issei countered. The supernatural world needs to adapt to reality before humans confront these truths. You devils know better than most how belief shapes power. The decline in genuine faith has weakened heaven's influence for centuries. Sona stepped forward, her analytical mind visibly processing implications. You'll face opposition from all factions. Angels won't accept a mortal claiming divine authority. Devils won't acknowledge anyone claiming dominion over hell. The fallen angels certainly won't submit to external control. I don't expect submission, Issei clarified. I expect cooperation in service to balance. Those who cannot adapt will find themselves obsolete. The power behind that final word hung in the air, a promise rather than a threat. A tall young woman with long black hair tied in a ponytail, Akano Himahima, half-fallen angel, half-human, laughed softly. My, such confidence from a boy who was peaking at the kendo club just last week. The chaos system certainly chose an interesting vessel. Instead of taking offense, Issei laughed. Precisely why I'm suitable, Akano Himahima. I understand human desires and failings intimately. I'm not a perfect vessel, I'm the right vessel. Balance isn't about perfection, it's about harmony between opposing forces. Rias reclaimed control of the conversation with practiced diplomatic skill. What do you want from us, specifically? Why reveal yourself to our peerages instead of approaching them out directly? Because you're already breaking traditions, Issei explained. Sears X Lucifer, your brother, along with the other new Satans, revolutionized the underworld after the Civil War. You're continuing that work at the ground level. He gestured to the diverse peerage members. I want allies who understand the need for change, who see beyond ancient prejudices. Starting with you. The room fell silent as the devils considered his words. Even through their caution, Issei could sense curiosity and a hint of excitement from some of them. They were young, relatively speaking, and the stagnant politics of the supernatural world had constrained their potential. Finally, Rias spoke. We cannot pledge allegiance to you without consulting our families and the Mao. But, she paused, Measuring her words, we can agree to neutrality and information exchange while events develop. A diplomatic way of saying you'll watch and wait. Issei nodded. I accept those terms. In return, I offer protection to your territories and peerages during the coming transitions. Sona adjusted her glasses, a habit when she was calculating risks. Will you be approaching heaven next? They're already approaching me, Issei replied, glancing toward the window where, invisible to normal perception, an angelic observer hovered. Michael's emissary has been monitoring this meeting. I expect a formal contact within hours. The devils followed his gaze, several tensing as they sensed the angelic presence now that he'd drawn attention to it. An angel on devil territory. Rias frowned. That violates our agreements. The old agreements are evolving, Issei said simply. Best get used to it. As if summoned by his words, a soft golden light began to coalesce in the center of the room, forming into a circle inscribed with Enochian sigils, an angelic transportation circle. Rias's peerage moved instantly. NTO defensive positions around their master, power gathering in preparation for potential conflict. Sona's group similarly arranged themselves, though with more emphasis on barrier magic than direct combat. Issei remained perfectly still, watching as the circle brightened and a figure materialized within it, a woman of otherworldly beauty with silver hair that seemed to capture and reflect light in impossible ways. Her eyes, when they opened, were the color of dawn breaking over an endless ocean. 12 wings, pure white and radiating holy energy, extended briefly before folding into invisibility behind her. Azrael, Issei greeted her, recognizing heaven's angel of death from the knowledge the chaos system had provided. I didn't expect Michael to send his most feared enforcer for a simple introduction. The angel regarded him with eyes that had witnessed the birth and death of civilizations. When she spoke, her voice carried the resonance of crystal bells, beautiful, yet with an underlying sharpness that suggested danger. Issei Hyodo, claiming the mantle of the chaos system, standing casually in a room full of devils. Her gaze swept the assembled supernatural beings, noting their postures and power levels with clinical detachment. Heaven has questions. I imagine it does, Issei replied evenly. Though appearing unannounced in devil territory might be considered provocative. These are provocative times, Azrael countered. When ancient powers reawaken and mortal boys claim authority over the divine order, protocol becomes flexible. Rias stepped forward, her noble heritage evident in her bearing. Angel of death, while we acknowledge heaven's interest in these developments, this remains territory granted to the House of Grimoire by treaty. Your presence, without prior notification, violates those agreements. Azrael's expression didn't change, but the temperature in the room dropped several degrees. Devil child, your concerns are noted but irrelevant. I come on behalf of the Archangel Michael regarding a matter that transcends territorial squabbles. Before tensions could escalate further, Issei moved between them, subtle waves of chaotic energy. Why emanating from his form? Not threatening, but establishing his position in the hierarchy of power. Rias raises a valid point about protocol, Azrael. And you're right about the importance of your mission. He turned to address both parties. This interaction exemplifies exactly why the chaos system has reawakened. Heaven and hell still operate as separate entities with minimal cooperation, even when facing issues of mutual concern. Azrael studied him with ancient eyes that had witnessed the rise and fall of empires. You speak with the authority of the system, yet you were human days ago. How can we be certain you are what you claim? Issei smiled. A fair question. He extended his hand, palm up, and concentrated. The air above his palm shimmered, then split, a miniature tear in reality. Tie that widened to form a window looking into elsewhere. Through it, they glimpsed a realm of pure possibility, where matter and energy existed in perpetual flux, where concepts took physical form and dissolved back into potential. The chaos realm, the source of the system's power, predating heaven and hell in all created dimensions. Azrael's eyes widened, genuine shock breaking through her impassive facade. The primordial garden, she whispered. It still exists. It has always existed, Issei confirmed, closing the window with a gesture. Before Michael, before Lucifer, before God himself shaped reality from its substance. The chaos system is what allows order to exist within infinite possibility. The angel's posture shifted subtly, not quite a bow, but an acknowledgement of power greater than her own. Michael requests your presence in heaven's seventh sphere, she said, her tone now more diplomatic than challenging. To discuss the implications of your emergence and potential cooperation moving forward. I accept his invitation, Issei replied. But on neutral ground. The dimensional pocket between realms known as the Axis Mundi. Tomorrow at what humans would call noon. Azrael's expression betrayed nothing, but Issei sensed her surprise at his counteroffer, and his knowledge of the Axis Mundi, a neutral dimension few beings outside heaven's highest circles knew existed. I will convey your terms, she said finally. Michael will respond through appropriate channels. With that, she began to dissolve into particles of light, the transportation circle reactivating around her. Azrael, Issei called before she completely disappeared, tell Michael the first look forward to discussing God's final instructions. The ones he left in the crystal codex before his death. The angel froze, her partially dissolved form solidifying momentarily. For the first time, genuine emotion crossed her face, alarm mixed with something like reverence. How could you possibly know about? She stopped herself, studying him with new intensity. Perhaps you are what you claim after all. Then she was gone, the transportation circle fading like morning mist under the sun. Silence. CE reigned in the clubroom for several heartbeats. Then Rias turned to Issei, her expression a mix of awe and consternation. You just negotiated terms with heaven's most feared angel and referenced secrets that made her visibly shaken. She shook her head slowly. Either you're exactly what you claim to be, or you're the most audacious bluffer in existence. Issei smiled, feeling the chaos cyst. M's energy settling comfortably within him. Why not both? The night was alive with supernatural activity. Issei stood on his home's roof, observing the flows of power across Kuo town with his enhanced perception. Angels maintained a discreet perimeter in the sky above, their oars carefully dampened to avoid alerting the devils. Demonic familiars scurried through shadows, gathering intelligence for their masters. In the nearby forest, a contingent of fallen angels had established a temporary base, their dark wings folding into the moonless night. All watching, all waiting, all drawn to the emergence of the chaos vessel. They will not act immediately, the system provided. They are assessing, reporting to their superiors, preparing strategies. Some might act sooner than others, Issei murmured, his gaze settling on a particular shadow moving with purpose toward his home, a figure whose aura he recognized. Rainer, the fallen angel who had killed him, was approaching. He moved with the confidence of a predator, unaware that her former prey had become something far more dangerous. Her wings were tucked away, her appearance once again that of the sweet Yuma, who had asked him on a date. Issei waited, curious about her intentions. Did she sense the change in him? Was she coming to confirm his death? Or did she have other motives entirely? He watched as she hesitated at the property line, seeming to check for traps or observers. Finding none she could detect, she slipped toward the house with supernatural grace. Issei stepped to the edge of the roof. Looking for someone, Rainer. The fallen angel froze, then snapped her gaze upward, shock evident on her beautiful face. Impossible, she breathed. I killed you. You did, Issei confirmed, stepping off the roof and descending slowly through the air, chaotic energy supporting him like an invisible platform. It didn't take. Rainer's shock gave way to calculation as she assessed the situation. Her wings manifested, midnight black and gleaming in the ambient light, as she prepared either to attack or flee. What are you? She demanded, light gathering in her palm to form another spear. We're just a human with a minor sacred gear. Now you feel like, she trailed off, unable to categorize what her senses were telling her. Now I'm something else, Issei replied, touching down lightly on the ground before her. Something your Grigori superiors are very interested in understanding. Mention of her faction's leadership made Rainer stiffen. You know nothing about the Grigori. Quote, I know Azazel didn't authorize your operation here, Issei said calmly. I know you and your little group of fallen, Donasik, Kalawarner, and Mittelt, are acting independently, pursuing sacred gear users against standing orders. I know Azazel values research over conflict, preferring to study sacred gears rather than harvest them. With each statement, Rainer's expression grew more alarmed. She took an involuntary step backward, her light spear wavering. How could you possibly know all that? Issei shrugged. The chaos system knows many things, including what you really want, Rainer. That caught her attention, suspicion warring with curiosity in her violet eyes. And what would that be, human? Acceptance, Issei said softly. Recognition. You fell because you loved humanity too much, against heaven's cold protocols. But the Grigori elite still treat you as lesser, a low-ranking fallen with limited potential. You thought collecting sacred gears would prove your worth. Rainer. E's face contorted with rage and something else. Pain, perhaps, at having her deepest motivations exposed. You know nothing about me. I know that you're at a crossroads, Issei continued, unperturbed by her anger. Your unauthorized actions have drawn attention from multiple factions. When Azazel discovers what you've done, punishment will follow. When heaven learns you killed a chaos vessel, EV.N temporarily, they'll demand retribution. Fear flickered across Rainer's features. You're bluffing. You're nothing special. In response, Issei allowed his full aura to emerge for just a moment. Divine light and infernal shadow coalescing around him in a display of power that made the very air vibrate. Rainer gasped, her wings instinctively spreading to their full span in a defensive posture. Holy and unholy, she whispered. That's not possible. Many impossible things are becoming possible, Issei told her, reigning in his power. The old order is changing, Rainer. Those who adapt will find new opportunities. Those who cling to outdated vendettas and unauthorized schemes will be swept aside. Understanding dawned in her eyes. You're offering me a choice. Issei nodded. Return to your companions. Tell them what you've witnessed. Then make your decision. Continue your current path and face the consequences from both the Grigori leadership and the chaos system, or adapt to the new reality. Rainer studied him. Calculation replacing fear. She was nothing if not a survivor, constantly evaluating which option offered the best advantage. And if we choose to adapt, then you may find a place in the new order, Issei said. The chaos system requires representatives from all supernatural factions, including the fallen angels. Those who demonstrate their value will be rewarded accordingly. Rainer's wings relaxed slightly, her light spear dissipating as she considered his words. You speak like a ruler already, human. Issei. He corrected her. My name is Issei Hyodo. Remember it. The next time we meet will determine whether that name represents your salvation or your judgment. For a moment, something like genuine regret crossed Rainer's beautiful features. I did enjoy our date. You know, before I killed you, you were sweet. Issei smiled, though the expression held little warmth. Next time, try not to stab your date through the chest. It tends to make a poor impression. A surprised laugh escaped her before she could suppress it. Then, with a final assessing look, Rainer spread her wings fully and launched herself into the night sky. A shadow against stars as she flew toward her companion's hideout. She will weigh her options carefully, the chaos system noted. Her ambition makes her dangerous but potentially useful. Everyone's useful in the right context. Issei replied, watching until she disappeared from even his enhanced sight. Even those who once killed us. He turned his attention to another presence he had been peripherally aware of throughout the exchange, a figure concealed in shadows across the street, observing with professional detachment. You can come out now, Serafina, he called. She's gone. After a moment's hesitation, Serafina Cruz emerged from her hiding place, her exorcist gear partially concealed beneath a civilian coat. She approached cautiously, one hand resting on her weapon. You let her go, she said. Disapproval evident in her tone. She killed you, and you offered her a job. Issei shrugged. The chaos system isn't about punishment or vengeance. It's about balance. Rainer has her part to play. Just as you do. My part doesn't involve murdering innocent people for their sacred gears, Serafina countered, stopping a few paces away. The Vatican won't approve of Fallen angels being incorporated into whatever you're building. The Vatican's approval isn't required, Issei said simply. Though their cooperation would be preferred. Serafina studied him with narrowed eyes. You're different from this morning. More assured. The system integrates more fully with each passing hour, Issei acknowledged. My human perspective remains, but it's increasingly informed by broader understanding. Human perspective is what keeps beings with power from becoming tyrants, Serafina said pointedly. Don't lose that, or you'll become just another supernatural entity the Vatican needs to monitor. Issei smiled, genuinely appreciating her directness. Is that why you're here, Serafina? To monitor me, partially, she admitted, and to deliver a message. Cardinal Vasco requests a meeting. Neutral ground, limited security detail, no supernatural entities besides yourself. The church moves quickly, Issei observed. I accept, with one condition. You serve as intermediary. Serafina raised an eyebrow. Why me? Because you're pragmatic, direct, and uncommitted to political agendas, Issei replied honestly. You follow orders, but you think for yourself. The chaos system values those qualities. The exorcist's expression remained neutral, but a hint of color touched her cheeks at the assessment. I'll relay your acceptance. The cardinal will propose specifics. She turned to leave, then hesitated. One more thing. The fallen angels. They're planning something at the abandoned church on the outskirts of town. Something involving a nun with a powerful sacred gear. Issei nodded. Ossia Argento. They plan to extract her twilight healing. Serafina's eyes widened slightly. You already know. I know most things happening in this territory, Issei confirmed. The question is, what will various factions do about it? The devils have interest in Asia. Heaven considers her a fallen sister. The Vatican declared her a heretic. And you, Serafina Cruz. What is your interest in a fallen nun? Innocent lives shouldn't be sacrificed for power grabs, she replied without hesitation. Heretic or not, she doesn't deserve what they plan for her. Issei studied her, seeing the conviction behind her words. Compassion from a Vatican exorcist. Interesting. Don't confuse duty with cruelty, Serafina said sharply. Most exorcists protect humanity first. Enforce doctrine second. A perspective the chaos system appreciates, Issei nodded. Go deliver your message, Serafina. We'll speak again soon. With a final evaluating look, the exorcist melted back into the shadows, her training allowing her to move nearly as stealthily as the supernatural beings she hunted. Issei turned his gaze skyward, where the watching angels hawked. Dee observed both conversations with intense interest. They would report to Michael, adding context to tomorrow's meeting. The devils would be planning their approach through Sirzex and the other Satans. The fallen would be consulting with Azazel, once Rayner's group reported, or was discovered. All the pieces were moving on the cosmic chessboard, responding to the emergence of a player they hadn't anticipated. The opening moves have been made, the chaos system observed. The reaction phase begins. Tomorrow will bring the first true challenges to your authority. Good, Issei replied, a smile playing at his lips. I'm looking forward to it. As if in response, the chaos mark on his chest pulsed with power, sending tendrils of divine light and infernal shadow curling through his vein. The system fully integrating with its vessel, preparing for the trials to come. Somewhere in the vast architecture of reality, ancient gears that had lain dormant for millennia began turning once more. The chaos system had awakened. And the universe would never be the same. Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, Heavenly Resistance. The Axis Mundi existed between dimensions, a neutral pocket of reality. Where the laws of creation remained fluid. Neither heaven nor hell claimed dominion here. No pantheon marked it as territory. It was the multiversal equivalent of international waters, recognized by a ancient treaties as sanctuary ground for diplomatic engagements between potentially hostile supernatural powers. Issei arrived precisely at noon, stepping through a tear in reality that the chaos system created effortlessly. The environment shifted and flowed around him, responding to subconscious expectations. For this meeting, the space had formed itself into a circular chamber with 12 equid stand pillars of opalescent material that wasn't quite stone or crystal but something more fundamental. A round table of the same substance occupied the center, unmarked by symbols of any faction. He wore the same seamless black suit that had materialized during his transformation, though it now featured subtle iridescent patterns that shifted like oil on water when he moved. The chaos mark on his chest remained hidden beneath the fabric, but its energy radiated outward, informing the space around him that primordial power had entered. They will test you immediately, the chaos system advised. Heaven's hierarchy respects strength and certainty above all else. Issei nodded, positioning himself at the table but remaining standing. Let them come. He didn't wait long. The air several meters away shimmered with golden light, forming a complex array of interlocking circles inscribed with Enochian symbols. The transportation magic of heaven was deliberate, precise, and unmistakably beautiful, reflecting the ordered nature of the celestial bureaucracy. Michael, the acting leader of heaven since God's death, materialized first. His appearance was deceptively gentle, golden hair that seemed to capture sunlight, features that conveyed both compassion and strength, and 12 magnificent wings that shimmered with power barely contained. He wore simple white robes with golden accents, projecting humble authority. Flanking him appeared 4 other angels of varying ranks. To his right stood Gabriel, her legendary beauty radiating gentle kindness that almost concealed the tremendous power she wielded as heaven's messenger and diplomat. To his left, Raphael's analytical eyes assessed Issei from behind a scholarly countenance, heaven's healer and scientist seeking to categorize this unprecedented anomaly. Behind them stood 2 figures of particular interest. Metatron, the voice of God, whose expression remained utterly unreadable behind a mask of pure light that obscured his features. And beside him, maintaining professional detachment that didn't quite hide her wariness, stood Azrael, the angel of death whom Issei had encountered the previous day. Issei Hyodo, Michael greeted him, his voice melodious yet carrying subtle harmonics that spoke to his immense power. Vessel of chaos, you requested this meeting. I accepted your invitation, Issei corrected gently but firmly. On neutral ground, as equals in discussion if not in perspective. Michael's smile remained, though something flickered in his eyes, surprise at being contradicted, perhaps. Of course. May we begin? Issei gestured to the table. Please. The angels arranged themselves with practiced precision, each taking positions that subtly reinforced their hierarchy. Michael sat directly opposite Issei, with Gabriel and Raphael flanking him. Metatron remained standing, as did Azrael, positioned slightly behind their seated superiors. You claim authority over heaven, Michael began without preamble. This requires substantiation beyond displaying aspects of chaotic energy. I claim nothing, Issei replied calmly. The chaos system predates heaven's creation. It doesn't require validation from subsequent structures. Gabriel leaned forward, her expression genuinely curious rather than confrontational. The system has been dormant for millennia. Why emerge now, through a human vessel with no previous supernatural significance? Because balance has deteriorated beyond sustainable thresholds, Issei explained. Heaven's ranks depleted after the Great War and God's death. LL's civil conflicts destabilizing the infernal realms. Fallen angels operating without unified purpose. Human magic practitioners disconnected from their heritage. Eastern and Western pantheons in isolation. The entire supernatural ecosystem teeters on collapse. Raphael's scholarly interest was piqued. You speak of collapse, yet the systems continue functioning. Souls are processed. Powers maintain their domains. What specific failures necessitate intervention? Issei turned his attention to the analytical archangel. Would a doctor wait until a patient's heart stopped before diagnosing terminal illness? Heaven processes fewer souls each century as genuine faith declines. Hell's contracts have become increasingly predatory to compensate for declining numbers. The fallen grow more desperate for relevance. These trends lead to only one outcome. Theoretical concerns, Metatron interjected, his voice eerily harmonizing with itself as though multiple beings spoke in perfect synchronization. Insufficient justification for unprecedented disruption. Issei smiled slightly. Then let's move from theory to practice. He raised his hand and above the table appeared a three-dimensio null projection, a complex structure resembling a city of crystal and light, with millions of glowing motes moving through various chambers and corridors. The angels stiffened as they recognized a perfect court representation of heaven's soul processing department, where newly deceased humans were assessed, categorized, and directed to appropriate afterlife domains. Observe, Issei said, zooming into a specific section where souls accumulated in vast holding patterns, waiting for processing. The average human soul now waits 327 Earth years before initial assessment, compared to 48 hours during heaven's peak efficiency. Why? Michael's expression remained composed, though tension appeared around his eyes. Resource limitations. The Great War depleted our ranks significantly. A partial truth, Issei acknowledged. shifting the display to highlight specific angels moving through the processing centers. But these administrators, he highlighted certain figures whose auras displayed distinct patterns, have implemented efficiency protocols that prioritize souls based on material donations to earthly religious institutions rather than spiritual merit. Gabriel gasped softly, her gentle features registering genuine shock. That cannot be correct. It is. Azrael spoke for the first time, her voice holding the crystalline clarity of winter moonlight. All eyes turned to her as she stepped forward. I have observed these irregularities in soul collection for 3 centuries. The Virtue Puerile instituted these protocols without conclave approval. Michael turned to her, surprise evident. You never reported this. Quote, I submitted 17 formal notices through appropriate channels, Azrael replied, her emotionless delivery making the rebuke more pointed. All were marked, reviewed and filed, without action. The acting leader of heaven appeared genuinely disturbed. I never received these reports. Because they were intercepted, Issei said, shifting the display. Again to reveal a complex network of information flows through heaven's bureaucracy. Certain pathways glowed red, indicating blockages. Corruption exists even in heaven, Michael. Not the dramatic evil of demonic influence, but the subtle corruption of systems that prioritize efficiency over purpose, protocol over justice. The archangels exchanged troubled glances. Even Metatron's luminous mask seemed to dim slightly in contemplation. These are internal administrative matters, Michael finally said, though his conviction had weakened. While concerning, they don't justify external intervention in heaven's governance. Issei changed the display again, this time showing the broader cosmic balance. Heaven and hell represented as massive interconnected systems, with energy flows between them fluctuating dangerously. These aren't isolated administrative issues, he countered. They're symptoms of fundamental imbalance. When heaven processes souls incorrectly, the entire afterlife ecosystem suffers. Souls that belong in paradisiacal realms get redirected to purgatorial dimensions. Those deserving redemption get consigned to punishment. The system's inefficiency creates opportunity for exploitation. Raphael studied the display with scientific interest. These patterns suggest deterioration accelerating over the past century. If accurate, the implications are troubling. They are accurate, Issei confirmed. The chaos system has been monitoring while dormant. Intervention became necessary when critical thresholds were breached. Michael's expression had grown increasingly solemn as the evidence mounted. What do you propose? First, transparency and accountability, Issei said. Heaven's hierarchy has become too insular, too isolated from consequences. Second, form of soul processing protocols, quality over quantity, compassion over rigid categorization. Third, opening limited diplomatic channels with other afterlife systems, including hell's soul intake departments. The last suggestion caused visible alarm among the angels. Gabriel recovered first. Cooperation with hell, that contradicts our most fundamental principles. Does it, Issei questioned gently, or does it contradict traditions that have calcified over millennia? Consider the parable of the Good Samaritan, heaven's founder teaching that compassion transcends tribal boundaries. You presume to lecture us on our own scripture. Metatron's voice carried an undercurrent of outrage, the light of his mask intensifying. I presume nothing, Issei replied calmly. I simply observe that all systems, even divine ones, require occasional recalibration. The chaos system exists for precisely this purpose. Michael raised a hand, quieting further objections. These accusations and proposals require verification and consideration by the full angelic conclave. His gaze met Issei's directly. If proven accurate, they represent serious concerns. However, the manner and extent of reform remains heaven's internal matter. Issei nodded, having expected this response. The chaos system respects heaven's autonomy in implementation. But the reforms themselves are non-negotiable. Balance must be restored. You speak as though your authority is absolute, Raphael observed, his tone curious rather than confrontational. Yet you were human days ago, with no connection to divine matters. My humanity is precisely why I was chosen, Issei replied. The chaos system requires a vessel with perspective outside eternal hierarchies. Someone who understands mortal limitations and aspirations. Gabriel studied him with compassionate insight. The burden must be tremendous for one so young. Before Issei could respond, Azrael stepped forward again. If I may, I propose a practical demonstration. All eyes turned to the angel of death, whose expressionless face revealed nothing of her intentions. What sort of demonstration? Michael asked cautiously. The vessel claims authority derived from primordial chaos. Azrael said. Let him demonstrate this authority where heaven's operations are most essential, the soul transition boundaries. Let him personally assess 100 souls according to the original parameters established at creation, without bureaucratic interference. Metatron's mask flared. Absolutely not. Allowing an untested entity access to vulnerable souls during transition is precisely what will demonstrate whether his claims have merit, Azrael interrupted, something unprecedented in heaven's strict hierarchy. If the chaos system truly predates creation, its vessel will perceive souls with greater clarity than our own mechanisms. Issei watched this exchange with interest. Azrael's suggestion was unexpected but strategic, offering a control-LED test that would either validate his authority or expose limitations. I accept, he said before the archangels could object further. 100 souls, assessed according to their true nature rather than administrative categories. Michael exchanged glances with his colleagues, a silent communication passing between them. Finally, he nodded once. We will permit this demonstration. Azrael will oversee as heaven's witness. When? Issei asked. Now, Azrael replied. Souls transition continuously. There is no need for delay. Issei nodded, unsurprised by the immediacy of the test. Even was moving quickly to either confirm or disprove his claims before he could consolidate influence. Very well, shall we? He gestured toward the emptiness beside their meeting table. Azrael stepped away from the other angels, moving to stand beside Issei. I will create a temporary access point to the transition boundaries. With a graceful movement of her hand, she traced a pattern in air that glowed silver and blue, colors associated with her domain as overseer of death transitions. A doorway formed, revealing a misty threshold that seemed to exist between dimensions. After you, she said, her expression remaining unreadable. Issei glanced back at the archangels, noting their varying expressions, Michael's cautious assessment, Gabriel's compassionate concern, Raphael's scientific curiosity, and Metatron's masked suspicion. We will await your return here, Michael confirmed. Azrael's judgment will inform our preliminary response to your claims. With a nod of acknowledgement, Issei stepped through the doorway, the angel of death following close behind. The transition boundary defied normal perception. It wasn't a physical location so much as a state of being. The precise moment when a soul detached from mortal existence but hadn't yet been integrated into any afterlife domain. Here, souls existed in their purest form, free from physical constraints yet retaining the essence of who they had been. Issei found himself standing, though standing wasn't quite the right concept in this non-place amid gently drifting lights, souls awaiting transition. Each one appeared as a unique constellation of energy, colors, and patterns that somehow conveyed their entire life experience. Fascinating, he murmured, observing how the souls responded to his presence, some drawing closer, others maintaining distance, each reacting according to their intrinsic nature. This is the most fundamental aspect of heaven's purpose, Azrael said, her voice softer here, more reverent. Guiding souls toward their appropriate destination. Before administrative systems, before hierarchies and protocols, this was the core of our mission. Issei noticed how different she seemed in this environment, less rigid, more connected to her purpose. You spend more time here than in heaven proper, don't you? Azrael's silver eyes reflected the gentle light of the surrounding souls. My function requires it. I witness every human death, every soul's separation from its vessel. I know them in ways other angels cannot. Which is why you suggested this test, Issei realized. You've seen the system's flaws firsthand. She didn't confirm or deny, merely gesturing toward the souls around them. Your demonstration awaits. 100 souls, assessed according to their true nature. Heaven's protocols currently sort them into 72 categories with over 400 subcategories. Excessive complexity, Issei commented, when souls naturally align with their ideal environments. He approached the nearest soul, a gently pulsing sphere of predominantly blue light with threads of green and gold woven throughout. Without touching it physically, he extended his awareness toward the essence. Immediately, information flooded his consciousness, not facts or biographical details, but the true nature of the being who had lived. This soul had been a middle-aged woman, a teacher who had dedicated her life to children with learning disabilities. She had known hardship but had transformed it into compassion. Her faith had been questioning but sincere, more expressed through actions than worship. Current heaven protocols would have placed her in a mid-tier paradise, after a processing period of several centuries, due to her irregular devotional patterns. Issei shook his head at the bureaucratic absurdity. He reached deeper into the chaos system's understanding, perceiving not just who this soul had been but what environment would best nurture her continued growth. With gentle direction, he guided the soul toward a specific resonance frequency, one that would connect her to heaven's sphere of compassionate wisdom, where enlightened teachers continued their work with souls in need of healing. The soul brightened, resonating with recognition of its ideal path, and accelerated toward its destination without further prompting. Azrael watched with unconcealed interest. You bypassed 17 standard protocols with that placement. Unnecessary complications, Issei replied, already turning his attention to the next soul, this one a complex swirl of red and amber. Vibrating with creative energy, this system should serve souls, not force souls to conform to the system. One by one, he assessed the souls, each unique in its composition and needs. A lifetime spent in religious devotion but harboring secret cruelty, redirected from automatic paradise to a redemptive domain. A secular humanist who had lived with extraordinary kindness, elevat, ed from purgatorial waiting to deserved reward. A child whose brief life contained mostly suffering, embraced by healing light rather than sterile processing. With each assessment, Issei felt the chaos system working through him. Recognizing patterns too subtle for standardized categories, souls responded to his guidance with an immediacy that standard processing lacked, naturally harmonizing with their ideal destinations once shown the path. Azrael observed in silence, her expression gradually shifting from professional assessment to something approaching wonder. The 99th, she finally said, indicating a soul hovering at a distance from the others, a chaotic storm of colors, predominantly gray and purple, churning in evident distress. Issei approached carefully. This one was different, fragmented, damaged by trauma and choices that had fractured its integrity. As he connected with its essence, pain washed over him. The soul had belonged to a man who had experienced terrible abuse as a child and grown to perpetuate that abuse against others. His life had been a cycle of harm received and inflicted, ending in violent suicide. Current heaven protocols would have automatically directed this soul to hell's punitive domains without assessment. Issei delved deeper, past the layers of pain and harmful choices, finding the original spark that had been systematically damaged but never fully extinguished. This soul needed neither paradise nor punishment, it needed healing more fundamental than either realm typically provided. With careful precision, Issei reconstructed pathways within the soul's energy pattern. Not changing its essence but repairing connections that trauma had severed. Then, instead of directing it toward either heaven or hell, he guided it toward a realm seldom utilized in the current system, the restoration planes, where souls too damaged for standard processing could heal at their own pace under compassionate guidance. The soul's chaotic energy gradually settled into a more coherent pattern, the storm calming to gentle waves as it moved toward its destination. Azrael's voice was barely above a whisper. That soul was beyond salvage by our current metrics. No soul is beyond hope, Issei replied simply. Some merely require approaches your current systems don't accommodate. He turned to the final soul, and found himself facing an unexpected challenge. This soul pulsed with energy that seemed deliberately obscured, layers of protection concealing its true nature. Issei glanced at Azrael, whose expression had returned to professional neutrality. This is not a recently deceased human. Very observant, she acknowledged. The 100th test subject is not randomly selected but specifically chosen, a soul fragment voluntarily contributed by an angel of the seraphim rank. The ultimate test of discernment. Issei understood the significance immediately. Seraphim were heaven's highest-ranking angels, their true nature so powerful that lower beings couldn't perceive them directly. By offering a soul fragment for assessment, a seraphim had created the most challenging possible test case, one that Heaven's own systems handled with elaborate ceremonial protocols. He approached the disguised angelic essence carefully. Unlike human souls, this energy responded to his proximity with conscious awareness, studying him as he studied it. Layers of concealment shifted like elaborate veils, revealing glimpses of tremendous power beneath. Rather than attempting to penetrate these defenses directly, Issei called upon the Chaos System's most fundamental aspect, recognition of patterns within apparent disorder. He observed how the energy moved, the minute fluctuations in its light, the harmonic resonances it created in the surrounding environment. Gradually, understanding formed, not of facts or history, but of essential nature. This was no ordinary seraphim. This soul fragment belonged to Ragal, the angel of justice, one of Heaven's most enigmatic and rarely glimpsed leaders. More surprising was what lay beneath the official identity: doubt, questioning, and genuine concern about Heaven's direction since God's death. This fragment had been offered not merely as a test but as a message, encoded in energy patterns that only primordial awareness could decipher. Issei smiled slightly as he understood. Without disturbing the soul fragment's disguise, he directed it not toward any standard destination but back toward its source, adding a subtle harmonic that only Ragal would recognize, acknowledgement of the hidden message and assurance that the concerns were justified. The fragment brightened momentarily, its disguise dropping for a fraction of a second to reveal blinding light of extraordinary complexity, BEF. Or vanishing from the transition boundary. As Ryle's composed expression cracked slightly, genuine surprise showing through. You recognized Ragal, and the purpose behind the offering, Issei confirmed. Not all of Heaven opposes necessary change. Some have recognized the imbalance but lacked means to address it within existing structures. The angel of death studied him with new intensity. 100 souls, assessed with perfect discernment, including a case beyond normal parameters. She inclined her head slightly, not quite a bow, but a clear acknowledgement. The demonstration is conclusive, and your report to Michael will reflect this. My function is truth in matters of transition, Azrael replied. I cannot report anything but what I have witnessed. Issei nodded, satisfied. Shall we return to the others? Azrael reopened the doorway to the Axis Mundi with a gesture, but paused before stepping through. The soul restoration you performed on the 99th subject. That technique has been lost since God's death. No angel currently in service possesses that knowledge. The Chaos System retains all patterns that ever existed, Issei explained. Including methods from creation's earliest days. Something flickered across Azrael's usually expressionless face, a mixture of reverence and apprehension. That makes you more dangerous than Heaven initially assessed. Or more valuable, Issei countered, depending on perspective. Without waiting for her response, he stepped through the doorway back into the Axis Mundi. The archangels remained exactly as they had been positioned. Though subtle changes in their auras suggested significant communication had occurred during the testing period. Michael stood as Issei and Azrael returned, his expression carefully controlled. The demonstration is complete, Azrael announced formally. 100 souls assessed, including standard cases, complex ethical challenges, and a seraphim fragment. Gabriel's eyebrows rose slightly at the mention of the seraphim. Ragal contributed a fragment. That was not part of our discussed protocol. I deemed it necessary for comprehensive evaluation, Azrael replied without apology. Michael turned his attention to Issei. And the results of this demonstration. Before Issei could respond, Azrael continued her report. The vessel demonstrated soul discernment capabilities exceeding current protocols by approximately 3,700% efficiency. Processing that would require 17 distinct angelic evaluations was performed instantaneously. Soul's Respo, NDED with immediate harmonic alignment rather than standard adjustment periods. She paused, then added with subtle emphasis, he also performed a complete soul restoration on a fragmented human Issei. NCE, a technique lost since the celestial restructuring. The implications of this statement registered visibly among the archangels. Gabriel's expression softened with something like hope, while Raphael leaned forward with intellectual hunger. Even Metatron's mask of light flickered with what might have been surprise. Most significantly, Azrael concluded, he correctly identified Ragal's fragment despite 12 layers of concealment, and responded appropriately to the embedded message. Michael's composed expression finally showed genuine reaction. Ragal sent a message. One intended only for perception at the primordial level, Azrael confirmed. Content private between the seraph and the vessel. The acting leader of heaven studied Issei with new consideration. It appears our demonstration has proven more consequential than anticipated. Azrael's testimony carries significant weight in matters of soul transition. Issei inclined his head in acknowledgement but remained silent, allowing the angels to process this development. After a moment of apparent internal deliberation, Michael continued. The angelic conclave will require time to consider these findings and determine appropriate responses to your proposals. Time is a luxury the current imbalance doesn't afford, Issei replied calmly but firmly. As a gesture of good faith, I will allow 72 hours for internal consultation. After that, the chaos system will implement necessary adjustments with or without formal cooperation. Metatron moved forward, his mask pulsing with intensity. You threaten heaven with unilateral action. Such arrogance exceeds even Lucifer's rebellion. Not a threat, Issei corrected. A reality of function. The chaos system doesn't require permission to fulfill its purpose. Cooperation simply produces more harmonious transitions. Before tensions could escalate further, Gabriel intervened with diplomatic skill. Perhaps we might discuss specific proposals in more detail. Understanding precise intentions would better inform our deliberations. Issei nodded, appreciating her practical approach. 3 immediate reforms are necessary. First, dissolution of the current soul categorization system in favor of resonance-based guidance. Second, elimination of waiting periods for initial assessment. Third, creation of direct communication channels between Heya, Ven and Hell's respective soul processing departments to resolve misdirected cases. Direct communication with Hell. Raphael's scholarly demeanor gave way to visible concern. That violates found-at ional separation protocols established after the Great War. Protocols that have outlived their purpose, Issei replied. Approximately 7% of souls currently in Hell's punitive domains AC. Truly belong in heaven's redemptive spheres, victims of administrative error rather than judgment. A similar percentage in heaven's lower tiers belong elsewhere. Without communication channels, these errors persist eternally. The mathematical precision of this statement caught Raphael's attention. 7% would represent millions of souls. Precisely, Issei confirmed. Millions suffering inappropriate afterlives due to bureaucratic inefficiency. A heavy silence fell over the gathering as the implications settled. Even Metatron's opposition seemed temporarily muted by the scale of the problem presented. Finally, Michael spoke. These matters require careful consideration. The 72-hour consultation period is accepted, though I cannot guarantee consensus within that timeframe. Understood, Issei acknowledged. As evidence of the chaos system's commitment to balanced intervention rather than dominance, I offer a gesture of cooperation. He raised his hand, creating a small sphere of swirling energy above his palm, half golden light, half abyssal shadow. Within it formed a complex series of interlocking patterns resembling a crystalline key. This is an access key to the restoration technique demonstrated during the soul assessment. It will allow heaven's healers to begin addressing the most damaged souls currently in processing limbo, without waiting for formal agreements on broader reforms. Gabriel reached out hesitantly. May I? Issei gently transferred the energy construct to her open palm, where it settled and adapted to her angelic essence, remaining functional but reconfiguring to be usable by divine beings. Beautiful, she whispered, examining the complex pattern with evident wonder. This will allow us to help souls we previously could not reach. A thoughtful offering, Michael acknowledged, though wariness remained in his posture. We will make good use of this knowledge. Issei nodded. Consider it a reminder that the chaos system's purpose is restoration of balance, not conquest or control. My authority extends to necessary corrections, not absolute domination. Yet you claim the right to implement changes unilaterally if we don't comply with your timeline. Metatron observed, his harmonized voice carrying subtle accusation. When a building is burning, firefighters don't wait for committee approval before acting, Issei replied simply. The cosmic balance has deteriorated beyond the point where traditional deliberation timelines remain viable. Michael raised a hand, preventing further debate. Your position is clear. Heaven will consider the evidence and proposals with appropriate urgency. He gestured toward his fellow archangels. We will withdraw to begin consultations immediately. As the angels prepared to depart, Azrael stepped forward unexpectedly. With respect, I request assignment as liaison to the Chaos vessel during the consultation period. All eyes turned to the Angel of Death in surprise. Such a request from one usually dedicated exclusively to her soul collection duties was unprecedented. Michael studied her with careful consideration. Your reasons, Azrael. Practical efficiency, she replied without emotion. My function already involves monitoring transitions between realms. Extending this to observation of the Chaos system's actions provides natural continuity. Additionally, my direct experience with the demonstration provides context others would lack. Issei watched this exchange with interest, perceiving layers beneath Azrael's practical reasoning. The Angel of Death had seen something during their shared experience in the transition boundary that had shifted her perspective significantly. After a moment's consideration, Michael nodded. Request granted. Azrael will serve as Heaven's official liaison until the conclave reaches its determination. The archangels gathered themselves, preparing for departure. Gabriel offered Issei a gentle smile, still cradling the restoration technique in her palm. Regardless of official positions, thank you for this gift. Many souls will find healing because of it. With that, the angelic delegation vanished. In a carefully choreographed flash of golden light, transportation circles dissolving like morning mist. All except Azrael, who remained standing precisely where she had been, silver eyes fixed on Issei with unreadable intensity. For several moments after the others departed, silence hung between them in the neutral dimension. Finally, Azrael spoke. They will resist. Of course, Issei acknowledged. Resistance to change is universal, even in heaven. Not all will oppose reforms, she continued, her voice lacking its usual coldness. Ragel's message confirms divisions within the Seraphim Council. Some recognize the system's deterioration but have been unable to implement corrections through established channels. Issei studied her with newfound curiosity. And where do you stand, Angel of Death? For the first time, Azrael's perfect composure showed a crack. A fleeting expression of what might have been pain crossed her features before disappearing. I stand with souls, she said simply. My function is to guide them from life to afterlife with dignity and truth. When systems obstruct this purpose, my loyalty belongs to function over protocol. An interesting perspective for Heaven's most feared enforcer. Issei observed. A hint of something almost like humor touched Azrael's silver eyes. Fear comes from misunderstanding. I am not an instrument of punishment but a guardian of transition. Death is not evil, merely the necessary passage from one state of existence to another. Precisely why the Chaos system values your perspective, Issei said. You understand Nda mental balance in ways many angels have forgotten. Azrael inclined her head slightly in acknowledgement. What will you do during the consultation period? Continue establishing connections with other factions, Issei replied. Heaven is just one aspect of the imbalance. Hell requires equal attention. You intend to confront the Satans directly. For the first time, genuine surprise registered in her voice. Not yet. Like heaven, hell requires preliminary groundwork. Issei turned his attention to the dimensional fabric of the Axis Mundi, preparing to create a transition portal. The young devil heiresses, Rias Ramori and Sona Citri, represent hell's progressive elements. Their cooperation will be valuable in approaching the more traditional power structures. Azrael considered this with analytical precision. Strategic. Though their influence is limited compared to the current Satans. All great changes begin at the margins before reaching the center, Issei replied. Now, shall we return to the human world? I have school tomorrow, after all. This statement, the casual juxtaposition of cosmic diplomacy with mundane education, actually produced what might have been a SMI. On Azrael's usually expressionless face. Your human life anchors you in ways most supernatural entities cannot comprehend, she observed. The Chaos system chose well. With a gesture that combined mathematical precision and artistic grace, Issei opened a portal back to Kuo town, specifically, to the rooftop of his home. After you, Angel of Death. Azrael stepped through without hesitation. Her silver-white wings momentarily visible before folding into invisibility as she adapted to the human realm. Issei followed, the portal sealing seamlessly behind them. Night had fallen over Kuo town during their meeting. Stars scattered across the clear sky like divine observation points. From this elevation, Issei could perceive the supernatural activity throughout the city, devils maintaining their territories. Fallen angels gathered at their church hideout, Vatican observers monitoring from discreet locations, and now, with Israel's presence, heaven's direct attention focused on his movements. "They're watching," Azrael noted, following his gaze toward the invisible observers. "Let them," Issei replied. "Transparency serves our purposes better than secrecy." The angel of death turned her attention fully to him, her silver eyes reflecting starlight. "I have witnessed the transition of every human soul for millennia," she said quietly. "I have seen the gradual degradation of systems once perfect in design. If your reforms can restore proper function, I will support them regardless of heaven's official position." The declaration carried weight beyond its simple words. Is was no minor angel offering allegiance, but one of heaven's most powerful and autonomous agents committing to a position that might place her at odds with the celestial hierarchy. "Be careful, Azrael," Issei cautioned. "The chaos system doesn't require martyrs." "I don't offer martyrdom," she replied with sudden intensity. "I offer practical alliance based on shared purpose. Do not mistake me for some sentimental rebel. Issei Hyodo. I have calculated costs and benefits with perfect precision." Issei smiled, appreciating her directness. "Then I welcome your support, practical and calculated as it may be." Azrael nodded once, sharply. "I will monitor heaven's deliberations and inform you of significant developments. Until then, I will maintain observable distance to prevent accusations of undue influence." With that pragmatic statement, she stepped back, her form beginning to dissolve into particles of silver light. "One more thing," Issei said before she completely disappeared. "The fallen angels at the abandoned church, they plan to extract the Twilight Healing sacred gear from Ossia Argento tomorrow night. Multiple factions have interest in preventing this." Azrael paused her dissolution. "This is a test." "Of sorts," Issei acknowledged. "How various factions respond will reveal much about their true priorities and willingness to cooperate across traditional boundaries." "And heaven's expected response?" "That depends entirely on how your consultation proceeds," Issei replied. "But a former holy maiden's fate might be an excellent practical application of reformed principles." The angel of death considered this, then nodded once. "I will ensure this situation receives appropriate attention during discussions." With that, she vanished completely, leaving Issei alone on the rooftop, at least physically. Supernatural observers remained at their posts, their attention now intensified after witnessing direct communication with heaven's representative. *THE first major confrontation has been navigated successfully, the chaos system observed within his mind. Heaven will resist but not outright oppose. Israel's support provides significant advantage. She's more complex than her reputation suggests, Issei replied, gazing up at the stars. There's genuine conviction beneath that cold exterior. All beings contain contradictions. That's why Bala, NCE requires nuance rather than rigid categorization. Issei smiled at the fundamental truth in this observation. Then, with a thought that was becoming increasingly natural, he phased through the roof and into his bedroom. Bypassing physical limitations with casual ease. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. School, devil politics, the impending crisis with Ossia Argento, and heaven's continuing deliberations. But for now, he would maintain his human routine, keeping one foot firmly in the mortal world that anchored his perspective. As he prepared for sleep, the chaos mark on his chest pulsed gently, synchronizing with his heartbeat, a reminder that while part of him remained human, something far older and more powerful had taken residence within his soul. Balance was coming, one realm at a time. Heaven's response began at dawn. Issei awoke to find a crystalline feather on his pillow, a communication method favored by certain ranks of angels. When he touched it, the feather dissolved into particles of light that formed a three-dimensional projection in the air above his bed. The message came from Gabriel rather than Michael, a significant choice that suggested internal politics at play within heaven's hierarchy. Vessel of chaos, her gentle voice emerged from the projection as her image formed, beautiful beyond mortal standards yet radiating compassion rather than vanity. The angelic conclave has begun emergency consultations regarding your proposals. Preliminary discussions reveal significant division among the seraphim and cherubim ranks. Her expression conveyed both hope and concern. The restoration technique you provided has already been implemented in our healing sanctuaries. 7 deeply damaged souls previously considered beyond recovery have begun harmonizing with their original patterns. This tangible evidence has strengthened the Reform faction's position considerably. The projection shifted, showing a schematic representation of Heaven's atom. Illustrative structure with various sections highlighted. However, resistance remains entrenched within the administrative virtues and principalities who have managed soul processing for millennia. Hay argue that proposed changes would create dangerous instability during transition. Her diplomatic tone couldn't completely mask her frustration with this position. Michael has called for a full convocation of all ranks to address these concerns directly. Gabriel's image returned, her expression more solemn. Regarding the Ossia Argento situation, Heaven acknowledges interest in the former whole. Why Maiden's welfare but remains divided on intervention approach? The traditional faction advocates non-interference based on her excommunication status. Others suggest more compassionate consideration. She leaned closer, her voice lowering as though sharing a confidence. Unofficial channels indicate that Ragal has dispatched observers to monitor the situation independently of official policy. This information comes to you as courtesy between potential allies. With a gentle smile, Gabriel's projection concluded. The 72-hour consultation continues. I will provide updates as appropriate. May wisdom guide your actions. Vessel of Chaos. The projection dissolved into motes of light that faded like morning mist, leaving Issei contemplating the implications. Heaven's internal pole. Idix were more fractured than external appearances suggested. A promising development for implementing necessary reforms, though it complicated immediate coordination. Gabriel's message carries subtext, * the chaos system observed. By communicating directly rather than through official channels, she signals personal alignment with reform efforts. Her mention of Ragal's independent action sagas, TS coordinated resistance to traditional protocols, *, and notification about Asia as practically an invitation to act while Heaven deliberates, Issei added, rising from bed and preparing for school. Clever. They maintain official neutrality while tacitly encouraging intervention. As he dressed in his school uniform, Issei sensed subtle changes in the supernatural energy flowing through Kuo town. Angel observers had multiplied overnight, their positions carefully distributed to monitor key locations: his home, the old church where Asia was held, the school where the devil heiresses operated, and the boundaries where other factions might enter the territory. More interesting was evidence of coordinated movement among the fallen angel faction. Rayner's group appeared to be accelerating their plans, perhaps sensing the increasing attention from multiple supernatural powers. They fear intervention, * the system provided. Their operation exists outside Grigori leadership approval. Exposure threatens their position, *. Then they'll move against Asia tonight rather than waiting, Issei concluded, checking his appearance in the mirror. The Chaos vessel looking back at him appeared. Outwardly normal, a typical Japanese high school student, yet subtle differences marked the transformation. His posture carried newfound confidence, his eyes reflected depths beyond their apparent youth. And an aura of contained power surrounded him like an invisible force field. Time to give Heaven's observers something interesting to report back, he murmured with a slight smile. Kuo Academy hummed with rumors by mid-morning. Students whispered about strange lights seen over the abandoned church, unusual weather patterns, and unexplained power fluctuations affecting the entire town. Supernatural world's increased activity had begun registering at the edges of human awareness, manifesting as phenomena they attributed to natural causes. Issei walked through these currents of gossip with calm detachment, his enhanced senses perceiving the actual sources: angels establishing observation posts, devils reinforcing territory boundaries, fallen angels preparing ritual spaces for sacred gear extraction. To his perception, the town had become a three-dimensional chessboard with multiple factions positioning their pieces. As he entered his classroom, conversations halted momentarily as students noticed his arrival. His transformation had registered subconsciously among his peers. Something about him had changed fundamentally, triggering instinctive wariness even if they couldn't identify why. "Yo, Issei," Matsuda called out, apparently immune to the subtle supernatural intimidation affecting others. You look different. Get a haircut or something. Something like that, Issei replied with a smile. Taking his seat, Motohama adjusted his glasses, studying Issei with his self-proclaimed 3 sizes scouter ability. There's definitely something different. You're holding yourself like, I don't know, like some kind of big shot all of a sudden. Before Issei could respond, the classroom door slid open to reveal an unexpected visitor, Sona Citri, student council president and devil heiress. Her expression professionally neutral despite the unusual nature of her appearance in a second-year classroom. Hyodo-kun, she said formally. Your presence is request. Ed in the student council room immediately. Whispers erupted among the students. Being summoned by the strict council president usually meant serious trouble. Issei rose calmly, gathering his belongings. Of course, Kaichu. As they walked through the hallways, Sona maintained professional distance, but Issei could sense the tension in her supernatural energy, controlled but present. Quiet tea. He development since our last conversation, she finally said, her voice pitched low enough that passing students couldn't overhear. Angels all over my territory without notification. Fallen angel activity increasing at the church. And you, apparently meeting with heaven's leadership directly. Issei glanced at her with mild surprise. Your information network is impressive. Necessity for survival, she replied crisply. Devils who don't monitor their territories don't remain devils for long. They reached the student council room, where Sona opened the door to reveal not just her pirag, but Rias Grimori and her group as well. Additionally, seated calmly on the couch with a cup of tea, was someone Issei hadn't expected, Serafina Cruz, the Vatican exorcist, in civilian clothes that be. Arlie concealed her combat-ready posture. Quite the gathering, Issei observed as Sona closed the door behind them. Rias rose from her seat, her crimson hair catching the morning sunlight streaming through the windows. Circumstances demand unusual cooperation. We've received concerning reports about tonight's activities. The fallen angels plan to extract Issei Argento's sacred gear, Serafina stated bluntly. My sources confirm preparations for a ritual that will kill her in the process. Issei nodded, unsurprised. Twilight healing is one of the few sacred gears that can be removed and used by others. Rainer believes possessing it will secure her position among the Grigori leadership. Asia was under my protection before the fallen angels abducted her, Rias said, genuine cons. RN evident beneath her composed exterior. As a devil operating in this territory, I consider her safety my responsibility. The Vatican's position is more complicated, Serafina added. Officially, Issei Argento was excommunicated for healing a devil. Unofficially, certain factions believe her punishment was excessive and politically motivated. Sona adjusted her glasses, the gesture emphasizing her analytical approach. This situation has drawn attention from heaven, hell, the Vatican, and now the chaos system. A convergence of interest that cannot be coincidental. It isn't, Issei confirmed. Issei Argento represents a perfect example of the imbalance plaguing supernatural factions. A pure soul punished for compassion that transcended artificial boundaries. Her healing ability functions on angels, devils, fallen, and humans alike, a natural reminder that fundamentally, all beings share certain commonalities. Serafina's eyes narrowed slightly. You're suggesting her situation is symbolic. More than symbolic, Issei replied. Practical. How various factions respond to her plight demonstrates their true priorities more effectively than diplomatic statements or theoretical positions. The assembled supernatural beings exchanged glances, recognizing the strategic implications. So we're being tested, Rias concluded, a hint of irritation coloring her tone. Not by me, Issei clarified. The situation exists independently. I'm merely highlighting its significance within the larger context of faction relations. Sona stepped forward, ever practical. Regardless of symbolic value, a concrete problem requires solution. The fallen angels have numerical advantage and home territory preparation. Conventional wisdom would suggest careful planning, but accelerated timeline removes that luxury. Which brings us to the purpose of this gathering, Rias added. Coordination between factions traditionally opposed could significantly improve success probability. Issei observed the dynamics with interest. Young devil heiresses proposing cooperation with a Vatican exorcist, all while seeking input from heaven's newly emerged authority figure. The very conversation, represented progress toward the balance he sought to restore. My official position is clear, Serafina stated firmly. The Vatican cannot sanction direct intervention regarding an excommunicated former Holy Maiden. However, as an individual exorcist assigned to monitor supernatural activity in this region, I have broad discretionary authority regarding fallen angel threats to local stability. Sona's lips quirked slightly, the closest she came to smiling. Similarly, as devils responsible for territorial security, we have obligation to address unauthorized fallen angel operations, particularly those involving lethal rituals. And heaven? Rias asked, turning to Issei with undisguised curiosity. Heaven is officially deliberating its position regarding numerous matters, including Ossia Argento's status. Issei replied diplomatically. Unofficially, certain angelic observers have been positioned to monitor the church with particular attention. In other words, Serafina summarized bluntly, all three major factions have reasons to interfere while maintaining plausible deniability. Precisely, Issei confirmed. The question becomes, how to coordinate effectively without violating existing treaties or triggering wider conflicts. Sona moved to a large table where a detailed map of Kuo town had been spread out, focusing on the abandoned church and surrounding areas. Quote, tactical assessment suggests three primary challenges, she began, her analytical mind perfectly suited to strategic planning. First, the church itself contains approximately 20 fallen angels including 4 of significant power level. Second, they've enlisted human exorcists, mostly excommunicated rogues with grudges against establishment forces. Third, defensive wards have been established specifically against devil and angel energy signatures. Serafina approached the map, adding her expertise. The ritual itself requires preparation time, approximately 1 hour of uninterrupted spellwork. During this period, Asia must remain conscious but restrained within the ritual circle. Interrupting the process before completion is our optimal strategy. My queen, Akano, has been monitoring magical energy fluctuations around the church, Rias added. Based on power-gathering patterns, we estimate the ritual will begin shortly after sunset, approximately 7:30 p.m. Issei studied the map thoughtfully. The fallen angels expect potential intervention from devils protecting their territory. They likely have countermeasures specifically designed against devil magic. They may not anticipate coordinated action from multiple factions. My thoughts exactly, Sona agreed. Which is why I propose the following. The devil peerages create a diversion at the main entrance, conventional and expected. Meanwhile, Vatican assets. She nodded toward Serafina. Infiltrate through secondary access points, utilizing anti-fallen weaponry that complement our abilities. And heaven's role? Rias asked, looking toward Issei. Observation with conditional intervention, he replied carefully. Heaven's representatives will not initiate action but may respond proportionally if the situation threatens cosmic balance. Serafina snorted softly. Convenient position. Diplomatic necessity, Issei countered. Heaven's full conclave remains in emergency session regarding larger reforms. Primat, your action could compromise progress on systemic changes. The Vatican exorcist studied him with unconcealed skepticism but didn't press further. Sona redirected attention to tactical considerations. Timing will be critical. The fallen angels must believe they face only devil opposition initially. Serafina's intervention should come as secondary surprise once their forces are committed. And if these measures prove insufficient? Rias asked, practical despite her concern for Asia. Then we'll discover whether heaven values compassion over protocol, Issei replied simply. The assembled, supernatural beings continued refining their coordinated strategy, identifying timing, access points, communication methods, and contingency plans. Throughout the discussion, Issei observed their interaction with growing satisfaction. Traditional enemies finding common ground through shared purpose, exactly the kind of cooperation the chaos system sought to foster. As the planning session concluded, Serafina approached Issei while the devils were distracted with final preparations. You're playing a dangerous game, she said quietly, her dark eyes studying him intently. Using a innocent girl's life as leverage to force faction cooperation. Asia's situation existed before my emergence, Issei replied calmly. I'm merely ensuring the response serves multiple purposes, her rescue and demonstration of cooperation potential. Cold calculation for someone who claims to seek balance, the exorcist observed. Balance doesn't mean emotional indulgence at the expense of strategic necessity, Issei countered. Asia will be saved. Factions will cooperate. Both outcomes serve the greater purpose. Serafina continued studying him, searching for something in his expression. The human being, who exists alongside the chaos vessel, does he have any say in these calculations? Or has he been subsumed entirely? The question struck closer than Issei expected, touching on internal dynamics. He was still reconciling the ordinary teenager he had been versus the cosmic authority he was becoming. He is me, and I am him, Issei replied after a thoughtful pause. The vessel wasn't chosen randomly. My human perspective is essential to the system's function. Compassion tempers power, mortality provides perspective on eternity. Make sure you remember that, Serafina said, neither hostile nor friendly but intensely serious. Power changes people, even power with noble purpose. Before Issei could respond, Rias called Serafina over to coordinate final details, leaving him contemplating the exorcist's warning. She perceives more clearly than most, the chaos system noted. The human perspective remains vital to our purpose. Without it, we become merely another cosmic force imposing order from above. I know, Issei murmured. The human stays. Always. Dusk settled over Kuo town like a velvet curtain, shadows deepening around the abandoned church that had become the fallen angel's base of operations. Located on the outskirts of town, the once sacred building had fallen into disrepair, its crumbling facade hiding the profane activities now conducted within. Issei observed from a strategic vantage point, a hill overlooking the church grounds but outside the defensive perimeter Rainer's group had established. He wore the black suit that had manifested during his transformation, its material adapting to operational needs with subtle armor-like reinforcement. Heaven's observers are in position, the chaos system informed him, highlighting their locations in his enhanced perception. 12 angels of various ranks, maintaining stealth protocols but combat-ready if authorized. And Azrael, Issei asked quietly, present but unaligned with the observer groups. She maintains position directly above the ritual chamber, outside normal detection range. Interesting. The Angel of Death had positioned herself for optimal intervention regarding Asia's soul, should the worst occur. Her presence without official sanction suggested personal investment beyond her liaison duties. Through his enhanced perception, Issei monitored the coordinated approach of the devil groups. Rias and her peerage circled toward the main entrance, their magical signatures deliberately less concealed than prudence would dictate, creating the impression of a straightforward frontal assault. Meanwhile, Sona's team established containment perimeters, blocking potential escape routes with subtle barrier magic. Serafina moved independently, her human nature allowing her to bypass detection wards specifically calibrated against supernatural entities. Armed with blessed weapons and extensive tactical knowledge of fallen angel vulnerabilities, she represented an unexpected variable in Rainer's defensive calculations. Within the church itself, Issei sensed frantic activity. The ritual chamber had been prepared in the basement, formerly a crypt now desecrated with profane symbols. Asia Argento's presence registered as a gentle green light amid darker energies, her sacred gear's healing aura distinct even at distance. Rainer stood at the ritual's center, directing preparations with growing urgency. Her subordinates, Donasik, Kalawarner, and Mittelt, positioned lesser fallen angels and human exorcists according to defensive protocols while simultaneously advancing ritual preparations. Most interesting was Rainer's emotional state, which Issei could perceive through the chaos system's empathic capabilities. Beneath her commanding exterior lay increasing BT. Their unauthorized operation had drawn far more attention than anticipated, placing her in a precarious position regardless of outcome. Success meant possessing a powerful sacred gear but facing consequences from multiple factions. Failure meant disgrace among the Grigori and potential destruction. The devils initiate their diversion in 3 minutes, the system updated him. Heaven's observers await developments, and we wait as well, Issei confirmed. Until intervention becomes necessary. True to prediction, precisely at sunset, magical energy flared at the church's main entrance. Rias Grimori's signature power of destruction, unmistakable in its crimson devastation, blasting through the doors in a dramatic announcement of devil presence. Fallen angel defenders responded immediately, light spears manifesting as they engaged the devil intruders. Combat erupted across the church grounds, magical energy illuminating the deepening darkness in flashes of crimson, gold, and purple. The confrontation followed conventional patterns. Devils and fallen angels had fought countless similar battles over millennia, each side familiar with the other's typical tactics. What neither side typically experienced, however, was simultaneous intervention from a third faction. As Raynor dispatched defenders to repel the devil assault, Serafina crews infiltrated through a forgotten tunnel beneath the church's eastern wall, a passage known only to Vatican archives, dating to the building's original construction. The exorcist moved with disciplined precision, neutralizing human guards' with non-lethal efficiency before they could raise alarms. Issei monitored these developments with analytical detachment, assessing effectiveness and identifying potential failure points. The Cordina Ted attack had successfully divided the fallen angels' attention, creating vulnerability in their defensive structure. However, Raynor had anticipated some form of intervention. The ritual chamber remained heavily guarded. With the extraction process already underway, Ossia Argento lay suspended within a complex magical array, her sacred gear, manifested as glowing rings on each hand, connected to extraction apparatus through threads of malevolent energy. Her expression registered pain despite apparent sedation, her life force gradually diminishing as the sacred gear separated from her soul. Ritual progression at 27%, the system calculated. Approximately 43 minutes remain before completion. Subject survival probability decreasing exponentially with each percentage point of progression. Noted. Issei acknowledged, continuing his observation. The devil's assault intensified, Rias and her queen Akino demonstrating why they had earned their reputations as crimson-haired ruin princess, and priestess of thunder. Destructive magic tore through fallen angel defenses, creating opportunities for Kiba's extraordinary speed and Kaniko's devastating strength to break defensive formations. Simultaneously, Sona's more methodical approach systematically disabled escape routes and reinforcement possibilities, her water-based magic countering the fallen angels' light abilities with tactical precision. Serafina had reached the ritual chamber's outer perimeter, neutralizing guards with blessed weapons specifically designed to disrupt fallen angel energy patterns. Her approach remained undetected by Raynor, whose attention focused on the ritual and the devil distraction. Fascinating, Issei murmured, watching the coordination between traditionally hostile factions. When necessity overcomes prejudice, effectiveness multiplies exponentially. Heaven's observers are reporting developments to the conclave, the system noted. Gabriel has stead provisional authorization for limited intervention if the human exorcist and devil forces prove insufficient. Progress, Issei acknowledged with satisfaction. Even considering intervention represents significant policy evolution. The bottle's trajectory shifted suddenly as Raynor detected Serafina's approach through secondary alarm wards. With a furious gesture, she dispatched Dane's to eliminate the human intruder while she accelerated the extraction ritual, a dangerous modification that would increase extraction efficiency but with higher risk to both the sacred gear and Asia's life. Ritual parameters altered, the system updated, completion timeline reduced to 17 minutes. Subject survival probability decreased to 12.4%. The situation had reached critical threshold. Despite their effective coordination, the Devils and Vatican representative faced increasingly difficult opposition as fallen angel defenders concentrated their forces. Asia's condition deteriorated rapidly under the accelerated ritual parameters. Intervention decision point had arrived. Enough observation, Issei decided. Time to demonstrate balance in action. With that declaration, he stepped forward and vanished from the hillside, reality folding around him as the chaos system enabled dimensional translocation. He reappeared directly in the ritual chamber, materializing between Raynor and Asia's suspended form. His arrival generated a shockwave of chaotic energy that disrupted the extraction apparatus, severing the malevolent connections without damaging Asia's SACR. Gear or further traumatizing her system. Raynor stumbled backward, violet eyes widening in shock. Me, Issei agreed calmly. We meet again, Raynor. The fallen angel recovered quickly, rage replacing surprise as she summoned a light spear of unusual intensity. Whatever you've become, you're interfering with what's mine. Ossia Argento belongs to herself, Issei replied, not both. Ring to defend against the weapon she held. The sacred gear is part of her soul, bonded by divine mechanics you barely comprehend. Raynor laughed, though the sound held desperate edge. Comprehension is unnecessary for acquisition. Once extracted, Twilight healing will serve my purposes regardless. And what purpose would that be? Issei asked, genuine curiosity in his tone. Gaining favor Ith Grigori leadership that doesn't want this operation. Healing fallen angels injured in conflicts they shouldn't be fighting. What outcome justifies Asia's death? Something flickered across Raynor's beautiful features, doubt, perhaps. Or recognition of the logical inconsistencies in her plan. But pride and desperation quickly suppressed it. I don't answer to you, she snarled, hurling the light spear with deadly precision. Issei didn't dodge or defend. Instead, he simply allowed the weapon to strike him directly, where it passed through his form without effect, dispersing into particles of light that reintegrated with the ambient energy of the chamber. Actually, he replied quietly, you do. With that statement, he allowed his full aura to manifest, divine light and infernal shadow. Coalescing around him in a display of power that made the very foundations of the church tremble. The chaos mark on his chest blazed through his clothing, illuminating the chamber with primordial energy that predated the creation of angels and their fallen counterparts. Raynor's expression transformed from rage to horrified recognition. The chaos system, she whispered. The stories were true. Yes, Issei confirmed. And as its vessel, I offer you one final choice, Raynor. Surrender and accept judgment, or continue this futile resistance and face consequences beyond your comprehension. Before she could respond, the chamber doors burst inward as multiple factions converged simultaneously. Rias and Akino from one direction, Serafina from another, and most surprisingly, a pulse of holy energy heralded the arrival of an authorized heavenly observer. The convergence of devil, human, and angelic representatives in a single chamber, focused on a common objective rather than fighting each other, represented precisely the cooperation the chaos system sought to foster. Raynor's gaze darted between these diverse opponents, calculation replacing bravado as she assessed her deteriorating position. Her subordinates had been defeated, her ritual interrupted, her forces overwhelmed by unprecedented coordination between traditional enemies. This isn't over, she hissed, dark wings manifesting as she prepared emergency evacuation. It is, Issei contradicted calmly. Your operation has failed. Your unauthorized actions have been documented by representatives of heaven, hell, and human authorities simultaneously. The Grigori leadership will receive comprehensive reports from multiple sources. Raynor froze, the full implications registering. Even if she escaped immediate capture, her position among the fallen angels was irreparably compromised. However, Issei continued, surrender and cooperation now could mitigate consequences. The chaos system values useful assets, regardless of past actions. Hope flickered briefly in Raynor's eyes before suspicion reasserted itself. Why would you offer anything but destruction after what I did to you? Because balance doesn't seek vengeance. Issei replied simply. It seeks optimal function. Your knowledge of Grigori operations could prove valuable during transitional reforms. The calculating intelligence that helped Raynor survive among fallen angel factions assessed this unexpected opportunity. After a moment's consideration, her wings retracted and she lowered her hands in a gesture of surrender. I accept your terms, she said carefully. My knowledge for my survival. Wise decision, Issei acknowledged before turning his attention to more urgent matters. With gentle precision, he approached Asia's suspended form, still connected to remnants of the extraction apparatus. The former nun appeared deathly pale, her life force dangerously depleted by the interrupted ritual. Her sacred gear, rings that normally emitted healing green light, flickered weakly like dying embers. Rias stepped forward, concern evident on her beautiful face. Can you save her? Yes, Issei replied, carefully examining the magical damage. Though healing this specific trauma requires particular approach. He placed one hand over Asia's heart and the other above her sacred gear. Divine light flowed from H's right palm while infernal shadow emerged from his left, opposing energies that would normally annihilate each other, but under the chaos system's direction, formed perfect complementary healing matrix. Remarkable, the heavenly observer murmured, witnessing divine and infernal energies cooperating rather than conflicting. Asia's breathing stabilized as Issei's combined energies repaired the damage caused by the extraction attempt. Color returned to her pale features, and the sacred gear's emerald light strengthened to its normal radiance. "She'll recover fully," he announced, gently low. "Ring her still unconscious form into Rias's waiting arms. Her sacred gear remains intact, though she'll require rest to recover completely." Rias cradled the former nun with surprising tenderness. "Thank you. We'll ensure she receives appropriate care." Under Devil's supervision, Serafina questioned sharply, stepping forward with hand still on her weapon. Issei Argento was once Heaven's holy maiden. Her place should be determined by legitimate authorities, not opportunistic devils. The same authorities that abandoned her for showing compassion to a devil. Rias countered, protectiveness evident in her tone. The heavenly observer, a principality-rank angel whose formal name translated roughly as compassionate justice, intervened with diplomatic precision. "Heaven acknowledges past errors regarding Issei Argento's treatment," the angel stated formally. "The ongoing conclave deliberations include reassessment of her excommunication circumstances. However, immediate medical needs take precedence over jurisdictional questions." Issei observed this exchange with satisfaction, representatives of traditionally hostile factions discussing cooperation rather than resorting to immediate conflict. "Asia's wishes should determine her placement once she recovers," he suggested, offering neutral mediation. "Until then, joint protective custody might satisfy all parties." The representatives exchanged glances. Considering this compromise acceptable, the angel acknowledged first, setting important precedent. "The devils agree," Rias added, though her protective hold on Asia didn't loosen. "The Vatican reserves judgment pending Asia's recovery and decision," Serafina stated formally, though her posture relaxed slightly. With Asia's immediate safety addressed, attention returned to Rainer, who had remained under watchful guard during the healing procedure. "What happens to her?" Serafina asked bluntly, making no effort to hide her disgust for the fallen angel who had nearly murdered an innocent for power. "She will be remanded to neutral custody," Issei decided. "Her knowledge will assist in addressing broader fallen angel faction reforms." "You're sparing her?" Rias questioned, surprise evident in her tone. "After everything she's done, justice rather than vengeance," Issei clarified. "Her actions merit consequences, but elimination would waste potentially valuable perspective." The heavenly observer nodded approval. "The conclave will recognize this as evidence of balanced judgment rather than faction favoritism." With formal representatives of heaven, hell, and humanity in agreement, however reluctant, the immediate crisis had been resolved through unprecedented cooperation. The chaos system's objective had been achieved alongside Asia's rescue, demonstrating practical application of balance principles. As the various factions secured their respective positions and tended to injured allies, Issei stepped aside, permitting them to establish working protocols without his direct involvement. Self-sustaining cooperation remained the ultimate goal, not dependency on his authority. A subtle disturbance in the chamber's atmosphere alerted him to an invisible observer, Azrael, still maintaining her position above the proceedings. Her silver eyes, visible only to his enhanced perception, registered something unexpected: approval. *Hev. N's most feared enforcer endorses your approach, the system noted with interest. This represents significant shift in celestial perspective. One representative at a time, Issei acknowledged quietly. Systemic change begins with individual perspective shifts. As the coordinated factions began withdrawing from the church with their respective charges, Issei remained momentarily in the desecrated chamber, contemplating the significance of what had occurred. Heaven, hell, and human representatives had cooperated effectively toward shared objective. Issei Argento, a soul caught between factions through no fault of her own, had been saved through combined efforts rather than becoming another casualty of supernatural politics. Rainer, though facing consequences for her actions, had been FFERED redemptive purpose rather than simple destruction. Small victories in cosmic terms, perhaps, but meaningful precedents for the greater reforms to come. The angels will report this outcome to the conclave, the system informed him. Gabriel has already requested details for presentation during deliberations. Good, Issei replied. Practical demonstration proves more effective than theoretical arguments. With the immediate situation resolved, he prepared to depart, then paused, sensing a familiar presence approaching from above. The air shimmered with silver light as Azrael materialized, her 12 wings momentarily visible before folding into invisibility. Vessel of Chaos, she greeted him formally, though her typical coldness seemed diminished. Heaven acknowledges your intervention and the positive outcome achieved. Official acknowledgement, Issei asked, noting the formal phrasing. Semi-official, Azrael clarified with unusual precision. The conclave continues deliberations, but preliminary consensus suggests your handling of this situation demonstrates constructive intent rather than disruptive authority. Issei smiled slightly. Translation. I've passed another test. Something almost like humor flickered in Azrael's silver eyes. Bureaucracies rarely acknowledge tests as such. But yes, essentially. And the cooperation between factions. Unprecedented in recent centuries, she confirmed, already generating significant discussion among the virtues and powers who oversee interdimensional relations. Issei nodded, satisfied with this progress. Heaven's 72-hour deliberation continues. With increased urgency and purpose, Azrael replied. Tonight's events provide practical context for theoretical reforms. She paused, then added with unusual directness. Ragal sends personal acknowledgement of balanced judgment regarding the fallen angel Rainer. Redemptive opportunity rather than destruction aligns with original divine principles often forgotten in modern practice. The message from Heaven's angel of justice carried significant weight. Seraphim rarely commented on specific operational decisions, particularly regarding fallen angels. Please convey my appreciation for Ragal's perspective, Issei responded formally. Azrael inclined her head slightly. I shall. The conclave reconvenes at dawn to continue deliberations. She prepared to depart, then hesitated. One final observation, if permitted. Of course, your retention of human perspective alongside cosmic authority provides unexpected advantages, she said, studying him with analytical precision. Divine judgment often lacks contextual understanding of mortal experience. Your integrated approach offers refreshing balance. Coming from Heaven's most detached and analytical enforcer. This observation represented extraordinary acknowledgement. Thank you, Azrael, Issei replied simply. Your recognition means more than you might realize. With a final nod of acknowledgement, the angel of death dissolved into silver light, returning to heaven to report on the night's developments. Issei remained alone in the chamber for a moment longer, reflecting on progress made and challenges ahead. Heaven's hierarchy had begun shifting toward acceptance, if not yet embrace, of necessary reforms. Hell's younger generation demonstrated willingness to cooperate across traditional boundaries. Human representatives like Seraphina showed capacity to prioritize justice over dogma. Small steps on a long journey, but movement in the right direction. With renewed determination, Issei departed the abandoned church, leaving behind evidence of faction cooperation that would ripple through supernatural communities worldwide. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, Heaven's formal response, Hell's political maneuvering, and the continued balancing of his human life with cosmic responsibilities. For now, however, balance had prevailed, and that was enough. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, Infernal Politics. 3 days after the church incident, Issei stood before an obsidian mirror in his bedroom, adjusting the tie of his school uniform while contemplating the subtle changes in supernatural politics his actions had catalyzed. Heaven's formal response to the chaos system had arrived at dawn, a crystalline scroll delivered by a messenger angel of middling rank. Carefully worded to acknowledge his authority while preserving celestial dignity. The angelic conclave had reached preliminary consensus. They would implement the requested reforms to soul processing, though at a pace they deemed prudent and measured. Direct communication channels with Hell would be established, but with extensive safeguards and monitoring protocols. Most significantly, they requested ongoing consultation with the Chaos Vessel rather than opposing his authority outright, a diplomatic victory that avoided unnecessary conflict. Progress, Issei murmured, his reflectee on showing a young man who appeared simultaneously ordinary and extraordinary, a Japanese high school student with eyes that had witnessed creation's foundations. More than anticipated, the chaos system agreed. Heaven traditionally requires centuries to implement significant procedural changes. Heaven's done. Time for hell, Issei decided, straightening his tie with a final adjustment. The RNAL realms won't respond to diplomatic overtures as readily. Indeed, hell respects strength and cunning above protocol. Direct presence will be necessary. The prospect of venturing into hell itself might have terrified the person Issei had been before his transformation. Now, he viewed it as a necessary step in restoring cosmic balance. Heaven had begun its reforms, however reluctantly. Hell's hierarchies required similar attention if equilibrium was to be achieved. A soft chime from his phone interrupted his contemplation, a message from Rias Grimori requesting his presence at the Occult Research Club after classes. Predictable timing, considering Heaven's formal acknowledgement of his authority. The devil heiresses would want to establish their position in the changing supernatural landscape. They offer potential alliance. The system observed. Young devil nobility favors progressive policies that align with balance objectives. They also have direct connections to the current Satans, Issei noted. Gathering his school bag, useful diplomatic channels. As he headed downstairs, he sensed a now familiar presence waiting outside. Azrael, Heaven's liaison, maintaining discreet observation while allowing him space to maintain his human routines. Good morning, Azrael, he greeted her as he stepped outside, addressing what appeared to be empty air to human perception. Heaven seems pleased with yesterday's outcome. Quote, the angel of death materialized partially, visible to him while remaining imperceptible to ordinary humans. Her silver eyes studied him with analytical precision. The conclave's response exceeded expected parameters, she confirmed. Ragal's influence proved decisive among the seraphim. And Michael, pragmatic as always, Azrael replied. He recon Isei's necessity while preserving traditional structures where possible. Issei nodded, beginning his walk to school with the angel accompanying him invisibly. And what brings Heaven's most feared Orker to escort a high school student this morning? For once, Azrael's expressionless facade showed a hint of what might have been amusement. Two purposes. First, to confirm receipt of the formal response. Second, to inquire about your plans regarding hell. Issei glanced at her with mild surprise. Heaven monitors my intentions that closely. Heaven maintains interest in developments that affect cosmic balance. She replied diplomatically. Your interactions with divine hierarchies suggested infernal structures would receive similar attention. Direct and perceptive, Issei acknowledged. Yes, hell requires similar reforms. Their soul processing systems have become increasingly predatory, and the balance of power between the seven houses creates unnecessary instability. Azrael walked silently beside him for several moments before responding. Heaven has concerns about potential consequences of significant disruption to hell's power structures. Understandable, Issei replied, but necessary adjustments needn't create catastrophic instability. Hell serves essential cosmic functions, when operating correctly. This statement seemed to catch Azrael's interest. You acknowledge hell's functional necessity. Of course, Issei said, somewhat surprised by her reaction. Hell isn't merely punishment for the wicked, it's a transformative engine for souls requiring specific developmental conditions. Heaven's light nurtures some souls, hell's pressures forge others. Both are necessary within the greater balance. The angel of death studied him with newfound intensity. Quote, that perspective contradicts traditional heavenly doctrine regarding hell's purpose. Traditional doctrine often simplifies complex realities, Issei replied as they approached Kuo Academy's gates. Hell was never meant to be eternal torment but transformative experience. Like heaven, it has drifted from original design parameters. Azrael's expression suggested she found this concept simultaneously disturbing and compelling. The conclave would find this perspective challenging. Truth often is, Issei said with a slight smile. But today's focus remains hell, not heaven's theological adjustments. They paused at the school boundary, where Azrael would not follow due to territorial agreements with the devil heiresses who administered the academy. Will you require heaven's assistance regarding hell? She asked, her formal tone returning. Not directly, Issei replied. Though maintaining open communication channels would be prudent during transition periods. Azrael nodded once, sharply. I will remain accessible through established methods. Heaven awaits reports of developments in the infernal realms with considerable interest. With that understatement, she dissolved into silver light, returning to Heaven's observation posts rather than intruding on devil territory. Issei continued toward the school buildings, aware of the significance behind Israel's inquiry. Heaven's willingness to discuss hell's reformation rather than automatically opposing it represented extraordinary progress in celestial politics. Traditional doctrine portrayed hell as irredeemably corrupt, a necessary containment system rather than a complementary realm with its own purpose. Structural changes in heaven create opportunity for parallel changes in hell, the system observed. Synchronized reforms provide stability otherwise impossible. Exactly why the chaos system exists, Issei agreed quietly. Neither realm functions optimally in isolation. As he entered the school building, he sensed the devil peerages monitoring his arrival with heightened attention. News of Heaven's formal acknowledgement had clearly reached them through their own intelligence networks. By day's end, he would need to address their concerns and potential cooperation before venturing into hell itself. Cosmic politics would wait, however. For now, he had mathematics class to attend. The Chi Research Club room maintained its aristocratic atmosphere, expensive antique furniture, ornate decorations, and subtle magical enhancements creating an environment reminiscent of European nobility. This was deliberate, Issei now understood, reflecting the devil aristocracy's historical aesthetic preferences. Rias Grimori sat behind her ornate desk, with Sona Citri standing beside her, the two heiresses presenting unified front despite their different personalities and governing styles. Their respective peerages positioned themselves strategically around the room, attentive but not overtly hostile. Issei-kun, Rias greeted him, the familiar honorific contrasting with the formal atmosphere. Thank you for accepting our invitation. Of course, he replied, taking the offered seat across from her desk. I assume Heaven's response prompted this meeting. Sona adjusted her glasses, a habitual gesture when formulating precise statements. News travels efficiently between supernatural factions. Heaven's acknowledgement of your authority represents significant development with potential consequences for all realms, including hell, Rias added directly. Which brings us to our primary concern. Issei nodded, appreciating their directness. You've deduced my next focus. Logical progression, Sona confirmed. Heaven's hierarchy responded to diplomatic approach because R and protocol form their foundational principles. Hell's power structures respond to different incentives entirely. Direct demonstration of authority, Rias elaborated. Hell respects power visibly exercised, not theoretical authority claimed. Issei studied the two devil heiresses with genuine appreciation for their political acumen. Despite their youth by devil standards, they demonstrated sophisticated understanding of supernatural politics. You're concerned about destabilization, he concluded. Disruptions to hell's hierarchy affecting your family's positions. The devils exchanged glances, some unspoken communication passing between them. Not exactly, Rias replied carefully. The Grimori and Citri houses generally favor progressive reforms. Our concern is methodology rather than objective. Hell's power structure has developed specific stabilizing mechanisms over millennia, Sona explained, her analytical mind evident in her precise descriptions. The seven major uses balance each other through complex alliances, marriages, and mutually assured destruction pacts. Disrupting these mechanisms without understanding their interconnections could trigger catastrophic conflict. Akano Himahima, Rias's queen, stepped forward with unusual seriousness. The last civil conflict in Hell resulted in millions of casualties and permanent damage to 3 entire regions. Current stability, while imperfect, prevents similar devastation. Issei nodded, recognizing the legitimacy of their concerns. You believe I lack sufficient understanding of Hell's internal politics to implement effective reforms. We believe additional context would benefit your approach, Rias corrected diplomatically. Which is why we're offering assistance. This caught Issei's interest. What kind of assistance? Sona gestured to a large portfolio on Rias's desk. Comprehensive briefing materials on current power structures, key personalities, historical contexts, and potential rage points for implementing reforms with minimal destabilization. Additionally, Rias continued, we offer diplomatic introduction to the current Satans through official channels. My brother, Sears Lucifer, has expressed interest in meeting the Chaos vessel under controlled circumstances. Issei considered their offer carefully. Their concerns were valid. Hell's politics made heaven's Berea. Ukrasi seemed straightforward by comparison. The offer represented both genuine assistance and subtle attempt to influence his approach. I appreciate both the concerns and the offer, he replied finally. The briefing materials would be valuable context for effective intervention. Relief flickered briefly across the devils' faces before professional composure returned. However, Issei continued, direct meeting with the current leadership should follow rather than precede my initial assessment of Hell's actual conditions. Official perspectives often differ from functional realities. Sona nodded, unsurprised by this qualification. Understandable methodology. May I ask how you intend to conduct this initial assessment? Direct observation, Issei replied simply. Beginning tonight. This statement generated visible surprise among the devils. Rias leaned forward, concern evident in her expression. You intend to enter Hell without official sanction or escort. Even with your authority, that represents significant risk. The Chaos vessel doesn't require permission to enter any realm, Issei reminded them gently. And observation doesn't necessarily mean official contact. Kiba, Rias's knight, spoke up with practical concern. Hell's security systems are designed to detect and neutralize unauthorized entry, particularly from beings with divine energy signatures. Your IQ nature might trigger unprecedented defensive responses. A valid concern, Issei acknowledged. Which is why I'd welcome information about entry points with minimal security monitoring. The devils exchanged glances again, clearly weighing risks and benefits of providing such sensitive information. Finally, Sona nodded slightly to Rias, who made the decision. Tsubaki, she addressed her queen. Please provide access details for the Asmodeus boundary transition. It's minimally monitored since the region's economic decline following the Civil War. The tall, elegant devil retrieved a map from the extensive files they had prepared, spreading it across the desk. It depicted Hell's complex dimensional geography, not the simplistic circles of human literature, but an intricate network of interconnected domains organized according to functions rather than punishment categories. This entry point, Tsubaki explained, indicating a specific boundary, connects to the outer territories of the Asmodeus administrative region. Primarily industrial zones now largely abandoned. Security focuses on preventing exit rather than monitoring entry, as the area holds little strategic value. Issei studied the map with interest. The Chaos system integrating this information with its existing knowledge of Hell's dimensional structure. And from there, access to central regions. Secondary, transportation networks remain operational, Sona provided. Designed for supply movement rather than personnel transit. Less monitored than official channels. This is significantly more helpful than I anticipated. Issei acknowledged honestly. Rias's expression turned more serious. Because our interests align more than you initially assumed. Reform that preserves functional stability while addressing systemic problems benefits progressive houses like ours. While offering plausible deniability regarding your methods, Issei noted with a knowing smile. Sona actually returned the smile. Slightly, rare for her typically reserved demeanor. Politics requires both principle and pragmatism. We support necessary changes while maintaining viable positions within existing power structures. Diplomatic way of saying you want reforms without being implicated in potentially controversial methods, Issei translated. Precisely, Rias confirmed without apology. Though our support remains genuine. Regardless of required approaches, Issei appreciated their honesty. The devil heiresses navigated complex political waters while maintaining progressive values, a challenging balance that required sophisticated strategies. One additional matter, Sona added, her expression growing more serious. Recent intelligence suggests unusual activity within House Phoenix and their aligned factions. In scheduled security reassignments, communication pattern changes, and resource movements suggesting preparation for significant event. What kind of event? Issei asked, noting the concern behind her analytical presentation. Unclear, Rias replied, though timing suggests possible response to your emergence in Heaven's acknowledgement. House Phoenix traditionally represents Hell's most conservative faction. Tsubaki elaborated. They advocate strict adherence to traditional hierarchies and minimal contact with other supernatural powers. Potential resistance to reform efforts, Issei concluded. Or preemptive action to preserve status quo, Sona confirmed. Their resources include specialized units designed specifically for operations against divine entities. This represent valuable intelligence, forewarning of potential opposition that might otherwise have caught him unprepared. The devils were providing genuinely useful information, further evidence of their sincere interest in measured reform rather than mere political positioning. I appreciate the warning, Issei said. This contextualizes potential resistance patterns I might encounter. Rias handed him the portfolio of briefing materials. Review these before your expedition. Knowledge of Hell's current political landscape will prove invaluable regardless of your specific approach. As Issei accepted the materials, he noticed additional tension in the room. Something remained unspoken but clearly concerned the devils. There's something else, he prompted gently. The devils exchanged glances once more before Rias continued. Rumored information only, but potentially significant. House Grimoire intelligence suggests unusual activity surrounding Lilith Morningstar, Lucifer's daughter, Issei identified. Accessing the Chaos System's knowledge. Designated heir to his position and policies. Yes, Rias confirmed, though her position has become increasingly contested since she began advocating modest reforms to Hell's soul processing systems. Sona adjusted her glasses again. Her recent movements have been restricted, official appearances cancelled without explanation, and her person Guard replaced with House Fennec's security personnel. You suspect containment rather than protection, Issei concluded. We suspect her reform proposals may have triggered preemptive action from conservative factions. Rias clarified carefully. Though without confirming evidence, official inquiry remains impossible without risking inter-house conflict. The implications were significant. Conservative factions were moving against Lucifer's heir for proposing reforms similar to what the Chaos System intended to implement. Hell's political landscape was more volatile than initially assessed. I'll keep this in mind during my observations, Issei assured them, rising from his seat with the portfolio. Your assistance is genuinely appreciated. Our interests align more than differ, Rias replied diplomatically. Balanced reform benefits all realms when implemented with appropriate consideration for existing structures. As Issei prepared to leave, Sona offered one final piece of advice. Hell operates by different rules than heaven or earth. Power respects power, but strength alone won't navigate its political complexities. Perception often matters more than reality. Meaning, how you present authority may prove more important than the authority itself, she explained. Hell's nobility responds to theatricality and symbolism as much as actual power. Centuries of tradition have created expectation patterns that influence effectiveness regardless of objective capability. An insightful observation that reflected Sona's understanding of infernal psychology. Hell's inhabitants had developed complex cultural signifiers that telegraphed power and position. Understanding these would prove valuable for effective intervention. I'll keep that in mind, Issei promised. And I'll maintain communication regarding significant developments. With final acknowledgments exchanged, he departed the Occult Research Club, portfolio in hand. The devils had provided more assistance than expected, suggesting genuine commitment to reform rather than merely protecting their positions. Their concerns about House Fennec and Lilith Morningstar added crucial context to his planned expedition. They prove increasingly valuable allies, the system observed as Issei left the old school building. Their perspective balances our comprehensive knowledge with current political specifics. And they gain influence in whatever new structure emerges, Issei added, acknowledging the practical aspects of their cooperation. Mutually beneficial arrangement. As dusk approached, He returned home to prepare for his journey into Hell itself. The portfolio would require thorough review before departure. Understanding Hell's current political landscape would prove essential for navigating its complexities effectively. The Chaos System had acknowledged Heaven's authority. Now Hell awaited similar attention, though its inhabitants would demand more direct demonstration of power. Heaven's bureaucratic acknowledgement. Balance required addressing both realms with approaches tailored to their fundamental natures. Heaven responded to order and protocol. Hell would respond to power and cunning. Both approaches served the same ultimate purpose, restoring cosmic balance through reforms that aligned each realm with its original function. As night fell over Kuo town, Issei Pr. Paired to enter territory few beings traversed voluntarily, the complex, dangerous, and fascinatingly corrupt dominion of devils. Hell defied human conception. Issei emerged from the dimensional bone dairy into a landscape that simultaneously confirmed and contradicted every human myth about the infernal realms. The Asmodeus territory's industrial zone stretched before him, massive factories and processing plants constructed from black stone and crimson metal, their architecture combining Gothic aesthetics with brutalist functionality. Great furnaces belched multicolored flames into a sky that wasn't quite sky but rather a dimensional ceiling resembling perpetual sunset. Yet this wasn't the hell of human nightmare. No tortured souls screamed from fiery pits, no demons with pitchforks tormented the damned. Instead, lesser devils moved with industrial efficiency between structures, maintaining machinery that hummed with magical energy. The entire complex operated like a massive production facility, processing raw materials extracted from Hell's unique dimensional composition. Conversion facilities, the chaos system identified, transforming primal energies into forms usable throughout Hell's territories. Primarily abandoned following economic restructuring after the Civil War, Issei moved through the complex unnoticed, the chaos system's abilities allowing him to adjust his appearance to match local expectations. A mid-rank devil official on inspection duty, his aura carefully calibrated to avoid triggering security systems designed to detect unauthorized entities. He observed the facilities with interest, noting how Hell's industrial infrastructure reflected its fundamental nature, transformation rather than simple punishment. These factories converted raw chaos into structured energy, mirroring how Hell itself was designed to transform souls through challenging experiences rather than merely inflict suffering. Following the intelligence provided by Rias and Sona, Issei located the transportation network that would take him toward Hell's central territories. An abandoned rail system still maintained minimal functionality, automated cargo platforms occasionally moving between stations without supervisory personnel. As one such platform approached, Issei boarded smoothly, positioning himself among cargo containers to maintain inconspicuous transit. The platform accelerated into a tunnel carved through dimensional space, carrying him deeper into Hell's territories. The journey provided opportunity to review the portfolio's most critical information regarding Hell's current power structure. According to the Devil's intelligence, the 7 great houses maintained uneasy balance, with House Grimoire and House Citri representing progressive interests while Houses Phoenix and Baal championed traditional power structures. The current Satan leadership, Sears X Lucifer, Seraphal Leviathan, Ajuka Beelzebub, and Falbium Asmodeus, had implemented moderate reforms following the Civil War, but remained constrained by conservative factions controlling significant military and economic resources. Most interesting was the information regarding Lilith Morningstar, Lucifer's daughter and designated heir. Unlike her father, who maintained cautious centrism to preserve post-war stability, Lilith had begun advocating more progressive reforms, particularly regarding soul processing and interfaction diplomacy. This positioned her closer to the Grimoire Citri philosophy than traditional Morningstar conservatism, creating tension within Hell's highest echelons. Transportation platform emerged from the tunnel into a vast underground cavern that served as interchange between Hell's industrial zones and its administrative regions. Here, Issei disembarked, observing the increased security presence with interest, devil guards wearing House Phoenix insignia conducting inspections with unusual thoroughness. Security patterns suggest heightened alert status, the system noted. Consistent with the devil heiresses, intelligence regarding unusual activity. Issei moved through the interchange with careful non-attention, neither avoiding security nor drawing notice. His crafted appearance, mid-level bureaucratic devil with appropriate identification magically generated by the chaos system, allowed him to navigate checkpoints without triggering suspicion. Bayo. The interchange lay Hell's central administrative district, a sprawling urban center that resembled a nightmare version of Renaissance Italy combined with modern corporate architecture. Massive RS of black marble and crimson glass rose alongside classical palazzos, connected by bridges that arched over canals flowing with liquefied spiritual energy rather than water. Devil society operated, in plain view here. Aristocrats in extravagant clothing moved through plazas and markets, attended by servants and lesser devils. Business transactions involving soul contracts and magical commodities took place in public exchanges. Artistic performances featuring impossible physics and perception-altering harmonics entertained crowds in open amphitheaters. This was hell as its inhabitants experienced. It, not eternal torment but complex civilization built on hierarchy, ambition, and transformation of primal energies. Human souls undergoing punishment were largely invisible from these public spaces. Processed in specialized facilities located in outer territories, Issei proceeded toward the governmental district, where the 7 great houses maintained administrative headquarters around He Central Palace complex occupied by the 4 Satans. His objective wasn't direct confrontation with Hell's leadership, but rather observation of actual conditions compared to official representations. As he approached the central district, however, he noticed increasing military presence, devil troops in formal battle armor conducting security operations with unusually aggressive protocols. Liens were being cleared from certain areas, and magical barriers had been established around key administrative buildings. Security concentration suggests imminent threat response rather than routine operations, the system analyzed. Consistent with coup preparation patterns in various historical contexts. This aligned with the devil heiresses, intelligence about unusual activity. Something significant was developing within Hell's power structure, something beyond normal political maneuvering. Issei altered his approach, moving toward areas with heightened security rather than avoiding them. If political destabilization was underway, understanding its nature would prove essential for effective intervention. The concentration of Fennec's security forces increased dramatically near the Morningstar administrative compound, a fortress-like structure combining ancient architecture with modern defensive systems. Guards stationed at every entrance conducted thorough identity verification, turning away even mid-level officials without specific authorization. Containment protocols, the system identified, designed to control information flow and prevent unauthorized access to specific individuals. The pattern matched Rias's concern about Lilith Morningstar's restricted movements and cancelled appearances. If conservative factions were indeed moving against Lucifer's heir due to her reform advocacy, the situation aligned perfectly with the Chaos System's intervention timing. Issei circled the compound, assessing security patterns and identifying potential access points. Direct confrontation would prove counterproductive at this stage. Information gathering remained the priority until situation parameters clarified. As he continued his reconnaissance, a commotion near the compound's eastern perimeter caught his attention. A group of devils wearing House Baal insignia engaged in heated argument with Fennec's security forces, something about scheduled diplomatic functions and improper cancellations. Lady Morningstar confirmed this appointment personally, the Baal representative insisted, presenting ornate documentation. House Baal has traveled from the outer territories specifically for this economic consultation. The Fennec's commander examined the documents with obvious skepticism. All appointments have been cancelled by security directive. Lady Morningstar is labeled due to unspecified diplomatic commitments. Unspecified. The Baal representative questioned sharply. House Baal holds level 7 diplomatic clearance. Specification is required by inter-house protocol. The exchange continued with increasing tension, neither side willing to compromise. Issei observed with interest, recognizing opportunity within the conflict. House Baal represented additional nobility but maintained commercial relations with progressive factions. Their presence offered potential information source about internal developments. With careful manipulation of perception, Issei adjusted his appearance to suggest Morningstar administrative staff rather than generic bureaucracy. He approached the confrontation with purposeful stride that communicated authority without requiring verbal assertion. "Is there a problem?" he inquired, his tone suggesting administrative annoyance rather than security challenge. Both parties turned toward him, automatically responding to the implied authority in his presentation. The Fennec's commander stiffened slightly, uncertain whether this represented oversight from higher authority. "This Baal delegation claims scheduled appointment with Lady Morningstar," he reported formally. "All such appointments have been cancelled per security directive." "I'm aware of the directive," Issei replied smoothly. However, House Baal's economic consultation was specifically excluded due to impact on Southern Territory resource allocations. This fabricated explanation contained sufficient bureaucratic specificity to sound plausible while remaining difficult to verify immediately. The Phoenix commander frowned, clearly uncomfortable with potential protocol violation but uncertain of proper response to apparent internal contradiction. I received no documentation regarding exceptions, he stated carefully. Departmental communication failures don't override diplomatic protocol, Issei countered with perfect bureaucratic logic. House Bail's Level 7 clearance requires formal explanation for appointment cancellation. Unless you're prepared to provide classified security justification directly to a noble House representative. The question represented perfect trap. Either the commander would need to reveal sensitive information about whatever operation was underway, or accept the exception to maintain security around the larger situation. After brief hesitation, the commander chose security over confrontation. Very well. Limited access to the Eastern Administrative Wing only. Standard security protocols remain in effect. The Bail representative maintained aristocratic composure despite obvious satisfaction at this resolution. House Bail appreciates appropriate protocol observance. Issei gestured for the delegation to follow him, projecting confident familiarity with the compound's internal structure. The chaos system provided immediate schematic understanding of typical Morningstar administrative architecture, allowing him to navigate convincingly despite never having entered the building previously. Once past initial security checkpoints and out of direct observation, the Bail representative moved closer to Issei. Voice lowered discreetly. Interesting intervention. You're not Morningstar administrative staff. Issei smiled slightly, appreciating the devil's perception. And you knew, lad, why Morningstar wouldn't be available for your appointment before arriving. A flicker of respect crossed the devil's aristocratic features. Mutually beneficial deception, it seems. House Bail has concerns about recent security adjustments affecting multiple territories. Concerns sufficient to risk confrontation with House Phoenix forces, Issei noted. Interesting priority assessment. The representative studied him with growing curiosity. You're not from any house I recognize. Yet you navigate restricted areas with remarkable confidence during obvious security escalation. Perhaps hair interest in understanding unusual activities affecting Hell's administrative functions, Issei suggested diplomatically. The devil considered this with political calculation evident in his expression. Information exchange might prove mutually beneficial, assuming aligned interests regarding stability maintenance. A reasonable assumption, Issei confirmed. The representative nodded toward DA's side corridor with minimal security monitoring. Perhaps somewhere less exposed for such discussions. Issei followed, maintaining awareness of their surroundings while evaluating potential information value against security risks. The Bail delegation appeared genuinely concerned about developments rather than participating in whatever operation Phoenix forces were implementing. In a small conference room designed for minor diplomatic functions, the representative dismissed his attendants before securing the door with privacy wards, standard diplomatic precautions rather than hostile preparation. House Bail maintains traditional positions regarding Hell's governance, he began without preamble. However, stability serves our interests more than ideological purity. Recent security rations implemented by House Phoenix lack Senate authorization or Satan oversight, suggesting unauthorized action rather than official policy, Issei concluded. Precisely, the representative confirmed. 3 days ago, Lady Morningstar's personal guard was replaced without formal notification. Her scheduled appearances began canceling without explanation. Communication with her direct staff became impossible through normal channels. House Bail has personal interest in her status. The devil's expression revealed calculated consideration before responding. Lady Morningstar recently begun diplomatic outreach to traditionally conservative houses, suggesting moderate reforms that would preserve fundamental structures while improving functional efficiency. Reforms threatening certain in power bases despite maintaining overall stability, Issei translated. Reforms that House Bail found surprisingly reasonable, the representative acknowledged carefully. Our economic interests suffer from outdated processing systems that Lady Morningstar proposed modernizing through gradual transition rather than disruptive overhaul. This information aligned perfectly with Rias's intelligence Lilith Morningstar had been pursuing reform paths similar to the Chaos System's objectives, likely triggering preemptive action from factions most invested in preserving problematic systems. Do you believe Lady Morningstar is being contained within the compound? Issei asked directly. The representative's expression confirmed this assessment. House Fennec's security controls all access points. Even Satan-level authorization requests have been delayed through bureaucratic means. Unusual concentration of Fennec's military assets surrounds the compound despite no formal security alert. Augustin coup preparation rather than external threat response, Issei concluded. A concerning interpretation consistent with observed patterns, the devil agreed carefully, maintaining plausible deniability despite clear implication. This situation presented both challenge and opportunity for the Chaos System's objectives. If conservative factions were moving against Hell's most prominent reform advocate, intervention served both immediate humanitarian purpose and broader strategic goals. House Baal's position regarding potential unauthorized containment of Lucifer's heir, Issei inquired, testing political waters. The representative maintained aristocratic reserve while conveying clear position. House Baal values constitutional process above ideological alignment. Extra-legal acti-ons against legitimate authority figures threaten stability regardless of policy disagreements. A principled position, Issei acknowledged. A practical one, the devil corrected with aristocratic pragmatism. Precedent allowing one house to unilaterally remove inconvenient leadership threatens all houses eventually. Self-interest aligned with proper governance, a typically demonic approach had nevertheless served stability better than pure idealism might have. House Baal opposed whatever Fennex was implementing not from moral objection but from recognition that such methods undermined the system preserving their own position. Your assessment of Lady Morningstar's location within the compound? Issei asked, shifting toward operational concerns. The representative hesitated, weighing information value against potential complications before reaching decision. Intelligence suggests the secure diplomatic suite in the northeastern quadrant, ostensibly for protection during unspecified security concerns. Protected from what, specifically? Officially, external threats requiring preventative isolation, the devil replied with obvious skepticism. Unofficially, perhaps protected from communicating reform proposals to potentially receptive houses and Satan leadership. This information provided sufficient basis for targeted investigation. If Lilith Morningstar was being contained due to reform advocacy, her situation represented perfect practical application of the Chaos System's balancing function. House Baal's objectives regarding this situation? Issei inquired, establishing parameters for potential coordination. Information verification primarily, the representative replied cautiously. Direct intervention exceeds our authorization without added ional houses supporting formal complaint. Hence the diplomatic appointment approach, attempt to establish Lady Morningstar's actual status through official channels. A measured approach consistent with constitutional processes, Issei acknowledged, and if verification confirms unauthorized containment. The devil's expression hardened slightly. House Baal would pursue appropriate remedies through established channels. Beginning with formal petition to the Satan Council. Issei nodded, understanding the political calculation behind this position. House Baal maintained traditional conservatism while upholding constitutional processes, allowing them to oppose Fennex's methods without necessarily endorsing Morningstar's reforms. Your interest in this situation seems more than academic, the representative observed, studying Issei with increasing curiosity. Yet your affiliation remains notably unspecified. Let's say I represent interests aligned with constitutional stability and appropriate reform processes. Issei replied diplomatically. The devil smiled slightly, the aristocratic expression of someone recognizing political maneuvering without requiring explicit details. In that case, perhaps mutual objectives might be served through coordinated approaches. What do you suggest? House Baal's delegation will continue pursuing official verification through administrative channels, creating diplomatic attention focused on Lady Morningstar's status, the representative explained. This official approach occupies security attention while perhaps creating opportunity for alternative verification methods by interested parties with fewer procedural constraints. The proposal represented perfect alignment of interests without requiring explicit cooperation that might compromise either party's position. House Bail would maintain constitutional propriety while creating conditions facilitating Issei's less formal intervention. A reasonable approach serving multiple objectives, Issei agreed. House Bail's discretion regarding other interested parties would be appreciated. Discretion serves our interests equally, the devil assured him. Diplomatic funk. Tie-ons often involve complex choreography among multiple actors with diversified objectives. With mutual understanding established, they finalized coordination timing. House Bail would escalate their diplomatic inquiry through increasingly senior channels over the next hour, creating progressive distraction that would culminate in formal protest requiring security commander response. As they prep ARED to implement their respective approaches, the representative offered one final observation. Whatever your actual affiliation, your understanding of Hell's political dynamics suggests sophisticated preparation. Most external entities fundamentally misinterpret our governance structures. Perhaps effective governance follows similar patterns regardless of realm, Issei suggested. An interesting perspective, the devil acknowledged with political appreciation. One Lady Morningstar might find compatible with her own evolving views. They parted with formal acknowledgments appropriate to their ostensible positions. The Bail delegation proceeding toward administrative offices while Issei moved deeper into the compound, using the chaos system's perceptual manipulation to avoid security detection. The northeastern quadrant housed diplomatic facilities designed for visiting dignitaries requiring enhanced privacy and protection, perfect location for containing someone whose isolation needed plausible justification. Security increased proportionally, with Fennec's forces implementing multi-layered protection including magical barriers, motion detection wards, and direct observation. Standard protocols for preventing unauthorized exit rather than entry, the system noted. Designed to contain rather than protect. Issei navigated these security layers methodically, using the Chow's system's fundamental understanding of magical construction to identify vulnerabilities without triggering alarms. Where direct circumvention proved impossible, he simply phased through dimensional boundaries, temporarily existing adjacent to physical reality before reintegrating beyond security measures. As he approached the diplomatic suite identified in House Bail's intelligence, he sensed concentrated magical energy, wards specifically designed to prevent dimensional transportation or communication. These precautions further confirmed containment rather than protection motivations, as legitimate security would have emphasized external threat prevention rather than internal isolation. The suite itself presented final challenge, direct observation by 4 Fennec's guards implementing rotating patrol patterns that eliminated surveillance gaps. Bypassing them without alerting the entire security system would require precision timing and significant energy manipulation. House Bail's diplomatic escalation reaches primary distraction point in approximately 40 seconds, the system calculated, monitoring developments throughout the compound. Security Commander will require consultatio regarding Noble House protest procedures. As predicted, alarms sounded in administrative sections as House Bail implemented formal diplomatic protest regarding access restrictions. The Security Commander received priority communication, necessitating immediate response to potential inter-house conflict. With command attention diverted, patrol coordination suffered momentary disruption, creating 5-second interval with observation gap. Issei utilized this precise window, shifting through dimensional space to materialize directly within the diplomatic suite's secure interior. He maintained energy suppression, preventing automated magical detection while establishing situational awareness. The suite reflected Hell's aristocratic luxury, opulent furnishings crafted from materials unique to infernal realms. Artwork displaying impossible perspectives, and environmental comforts adjusted to demonic preferences. Despite its ostensible diplomatic purpose, security modifications betrayed its current function. Communication devices disabled, windows sealed with multiple redundant barriers, and furnishings subtly designed to prevent use as weapons. In the suite's private study, a young woman stood at sealed windows, gazing outward with expression combining frustration and calculation. Her appearance matched House Bail's intelligence regarding Lilith Morningstar, aristocratic beauty wit. Distinctive features suggesting her father's legendary charisma combined with unique feminine refinement. Raven hair cascaded to her waist, contrasting with pale skin that seemed to capture and reflect Hell's ambient light. Her clothing combined traditional nobility signifiers with modern styling, conservative enough to satisfy traditionalists while incorporating subtle progressive elements. Most striking was her aura, unmistakable power contained with practiced discipline, revealing both her heritage as Lucifer's daughter and personal magical development, suggesting significant individual capability apart from inherited status. She sensed Issei's presence immediately, turning with composed wariness rather than alarm, reaction suggesting political imprisonment had been anticipated rather than surprising. Her crimson eyes narrowed slightly, studying him with analytical precision that evaluated threat potential, political affiliation, and strategic implications simultaneously. Interesting, she observed, her voice cultured but direct. House Phoenix's security supposedly prevented unauthorized access completely. Yet here you stand, unannounced and unidentified. Issei maintained comfortable distance, presenting non-threatening posture while establishing position. Their security focuses on preventing your exit rather than others' entry. Different design parameters. Astute observation, she acknowledged. Maintaining aristocratic composure while subtly shifting to position, offering both defensive advantages and potential offensive angles. Though it doesn't address the more relevant question of why you're here. Quote, verification of your status, primarily, Issei replied honestly. Reports suggested unusual restrictions on your movements coinciding with reform proposals. Why? OU recently presented to traditionally conservative houses. Lilith's expression revealed nothing, though her aura fluctuated slightly, surprise carefully controlled. Detailed information for someone without obvious house affiliation or official position. Perhaps I represent interests aligned with balanced reform rather than specific political factions, Issei suggested. Cryptic positioning, suggesting either extraordinary independence or external affiliation, she noted with political acumen. Neither typically navigates Hell's security systems with apparent ease. Rather than continuing verbal sparring, Issei decided direct approach would prove most efficient given security constraints. Your containment appears connected to reform proposals threatening certain power structures. Why? Potentially gaining support from unexpected quarters. House Bale, for instance, found your economic modernization proposals surprisingly reasonable, despite their traditional conservatism. This specific information visibly impacted Lilith's calculation, confirming internal intelligence she had likely suspected but couldn't verify during isolation. Her posture shifted subtly from defensive caution to analytical assessment. You've spoken with House Bale representatives recently, she concluded. Interesting, considering their scheduled appointment was supposedly cancelled along with all my official functions. They maintain traditional protocol requirements despite security objections, Issei confirmed. Their delegation currently creates diplomatic distraction allowing this conversation. Lilith considered this with obvious political calculation. House Bale values constitutional process above ideological alignment, pragmatic self-interest rather than principled support for my specific reforms. Yet effectively aligned with your interests regarding unauthorized containment, Issei noted. Unlikely allies often prove most valuable during political transitions. She studied him with increased intensity, reassessing his nature and purpose. You haven't identified yourself or your specific interest in my situation. Would standard introductions involving houses, titles, or affiliations prove particularly relevant to immediate circumstances? Issei countered with slight smile. Your containment requires address regardless of my specific identity. Practical prioritization, she acknowledged with aristocratic appreciation for efficiency. Though comprehensive understanding would better inform strategic response options. Issei considered appropriate disclosure, re-level given operational constraints and broader objectives. Limited revelation would establish necessary trust without compromising tactical flexibility. I represent fundamental balance between realms, he explained. Allowing controlled manifestation of the chaos system's distinctive energy, divine light and infernal shadow perfectly balanced rather than conflicting. Your reform proposals ally GN with necessary recalibration of Hell's functions within greater cosmic equilibrium. Lilith's composed aristocratic facade cracked slightly, genuine shock briefly visible as she processed implications of this energy signature. As Lucifer's daughter, she possessed sufficient knowledge to recognize what few beings in any realm would identify. The chaos system, she whispered, ancestral knowledge surfacing. Long considered mythological rather than actual. Myths often contain fundamental truths, Issei replied simply. Her recovery from surprise demonstrated impressive political discipline. Nay, momentary shock replaced by rapid strategic reassessment. This explains recent developments more comprehensively. Heaven's unusual diplomatic adjustments, increased observation activity across realms, and now my containment following reform proposals that conservative factions previously dismissed as idealistic impossibilities. Your proposals threatened not just political comfort but fundamental resistance to necessary rebalancing, Issei confirmed. House Phoenix likely recognized alignment between your initiatives and broader cosmic adjustments, prompting preemptive containment before alliance could formalize. They fear change more than instability, Lilith concluded with clear understanding of Hell's internal politics. Conservative factions would rather risk constitutional crisis than permit reforms undermining traditional advantage systems. Precisely why intervention becomes necessary, Issei noted. Your situation represents microcosm of larger resistance patterns requiring address for successful rebalancing. Lilith moved closer, studying him with intensity that combined political assessment with genuine intellectual curiosity. The chaos system requires vessel for manifestation, mortal interface enabling cosmic function without dimensional disruption. Correct. Yet you appear extraordinarily young for such responsibility, she observed, focusing on his physical form rather than energy signature. Human-derived vessel, recently integrated based on manifestation patterns in your aura harmonics. Her perceptiveness impressed Issei. Few beings in any realm could discern such specific details from mere observation. Lucifer's daughter clearly possessed exceptional analytical abilities beyond political acumen. Issei Hyodo, he introduced himself formally. Recently integrated with the chaos system following death and resurrection circumstances. Fascinating, Lilith acknowledged with genuine intellectual interest transcending immediate political situation. The system's selection parameters must prioritize adaptive potential over established power metrics. Precisely. Established perspective often resists necessary change regardless of objective benefit. A principle applicable to current circumstances, she noted with ironic appreciation. House Phoenix represents entrenched perspective resistant to objectively beneficial adjustments. Their theoretical discussion was interrupted by security alarms activating throughout the compound. House Bale's diplomatic distraction had escalated beyond initial parameters, creating compound-wide response protocols. Our conversation window narrows, Issei observed. Your preferences regarding current containment. Lilith's expression shifted to practical determination, political fear. Why giving way to immediate strategic considerations? Unauthorized containment by single house faction violates constitutional processes regardless of theoretical justifications. Precedent threatens governmental stability beyond specific policy disagreements. You seek release rather than continued strategic patience, Issei confirmed. Strategic patience served evaluation purposes initially, she explained with practical calculation. Determining whether operation represented official Satan policy or unauthorized faction action required observation period. Evidence now confirms the latter, necessitating proportional response. A response potentially facilitated by external intervention aligned with constitutional processes rather than specific house interests, Issei suggested. Lilith H smiled slightly, an expression combining aristocratic restraint with genuine appreciation. Precisely. Intervention addressing improper process rather than endorsing specific policy positions maintains governmental stability while enabling necessary reforms through legitimate channels. This approach aligned perfectly with the chaos system's objectives, facilitating necessary changes through existing structures where possible rather than imposing external authority unnecessarily. Lilith Morningstar represented ideal internal reform advocate, possessing both legitimate authority and progress vision within Hell's existing power structure. Then let's proceed with appropriate intervention, Issei decided. Though security response will intensify once your absence is discovered. House Phoenix controls significant military assets but lacks authorization for full deployment without Senate approval, Lilith noted, already gathering essential items with efficient practicality despite her aristocratic appearance. Their operational parameters likely emphasize containment rather than direct confrontation, particularly regarding Lucifer's heir. Creating opportunity for strategic extraction emphasizing constitutional propriety rather than factional conflict, Issei concluded, their thinking aligning effectively. Exactly, Lilith confirmed. My physical removal from unauthorized containment, followed by immediate appearance before the Senate with formal complaint, transforms factional security operation into constitutional crisis requiring official response. Her strategic thinking impressed Issei. She navigated Hell's complex political environment with sophistication that balanced progressive objectives against institutional stability requirements. This confirmed her suitability as internal reform partner rather than obstacle requiring circumvention. Security patterns suggest primary extraction challenges at compound perimeter rather than suite vicinity, Issei observed. Sensing defensive redeployment throughout the facility, House Bale's diplomatic distraction has drawn response assets toward administrative sections. The northeastern ceremonial exit maintains lighter security due to architectural limitations preventing large force deployment, Lilith suggested, demonstrating intimate knowledge of the compound's defensive weaknesses. Traditionally considered escape-proof due to proximity to dimensional boundary monitoring stations. Traditional escape methods rely on conventional dimensional manipulation detectable by standard monitoring equipment, Issei noted. The chaos system operates on more fundamental principles. Lilith smiled slightly, genuine appreciation for strategic advantage rather than merely political calculation. Excellent. Though public appearance rather than covert extraction better serves constitutional positioning once clear of immediate security containment. Agreed. Initial extraction requires discretion, followed by strategic visibility once immediate threat parameters are mitigated. With approach established, they moved toward implementation. Lilith gathered documentation regarding her reform proposals, evidence of unauthorized containment, political ammunition for subsequent constitutional challenge. Issei monitored security deployment patterns, identifying optimal extraction timing as House Bale's diplomatic confrontation reached maximum intensity. Ready? He asked as security alarms continued escalating throughout the compound. Lilith straightened her formal attire, aristocratic bearing turning as she prepared for public reappearance. The Chaos Vessel and Lucifer's heir cooperating to address constitutional violation, an interesting development in Hell's political landscape. Resting developments often catalyze necessary changes, Issei observed. Indeed, she agreed with subtle smile suggesting appreciation beyond mere political alliance. Shall we proceed with catalyzing? Issei extended his hand, establishing connection necessary for transportation utilizing the chaos system's fundamental dimensional access rather than conventional magical methods. Lilith accepted the contact without hesitation, her own power harmonizing surprisingly well with the system's balanced energy. With precise calculation, Issei shifted them through dimensional boundaries, not teleportation in conventional sense but momentary existence adjacent to physical reality before reintegration at predetermined coordinates. This method bypassed traditional detection systems designed for conventional transportation magic, allowing them to materialize near the northeastern ceremonial exit without triggering immediate security response. The exit vicinity maintained lighter guard presence as Lilith had predicted. Though security remained substantial, Forfinex soldiers implementing standard patrol patterns with magical enhancements optimizing detection capabilities. Direct confrontation proves counterproductive for constitutional positioning, Lilith observed quietly. Non-lethal neutralization preferable to maintain narrative regarding proper process restoration rather than factional conflict. Agreed, Issei confirmed, appreciating her strategic discipline despite personal grievance regarding unauthorized containment. He extended perception beyond physical limitations, identifying precise magical frequencies utilized in security communication systems. With careful manipulation of chaotic energy, he introduced subtle harmonic disruption, not obvious sabotage that would trigger alarms, but gradual degradation resembling equipment malfunction. The guards' communication devices began producing static interference, prompting standard diagnostic protocols that momentarily divided their attention between security observation and equipment verification. This created sufficient distraction for precisely timed movement through patrol pattern gaps. Lilith moved with impressive coordination, her aristocratic appearance belying physical capabilities suggesting extensive combat training beyond political education. Together they navigated security gaps with synchronized efficiency, reaching the ceremonial exit without alerting patrol units. The exit itself presented final challenge, magical sealing wards requiring specific authorization credentials for deactivation. Under normal circumstances, bypassing such protections would trigger immediate compound-wide security response. Standard neutralization methods risk comprehensive alert activation, Lilith noted. Examining the ward structures with technical appreciation. House Finex modified traditional configurations with updated alarm integration. Conventional bypass approaches all trigger detection, Issei agreed. Analyzing the magical construction, however, he placed his hand near the ward anchor points without directly contacting them. The chaos system allowed perception of the ward's fundamental construction, not merely its magical parameters but the underlying reality principles supporting its function. Rather than attacking or bypassing the ward directly, Issei temporarily adjusted low-cal dimensional constants governing magical conductivity. The wards remained technically functional but temporarily unable to transfer energy between their component parts, like electrical circuits suddenly faced with perfect insulation between connections. This created brief operational window where physical passage remained possible without triggering alarm functions. Fascinating approach, Lilith observed with genuine intellectual appreciation. Adjusting fundamental constants rather than engaging with magical construction directly. Temporary adjustment only, Issei explained as they passed through the disabled barrier. Permanent changes to dimensional constants would create broader instability issues. Beyond the ceremonial exit lay external embassy grounds, technically part of He Morningstar compound but with different security jurisdictions that complicated House Finex's control parameters. Here, unauthorized containment became more difficult to justify under constitutional protocols. As embassy grounds maintained diplomatic status requiring multi-house authorization for security operations. Strategic decision point, Lilith noted as they reached relative safety. Mediate public appearance maximizes constitutional impact but allows minimal preparation. Delayed appearance permits strategic coordination but risks narrative manipulation by containment forces. SSEI considered options against broader objectives. What serves balanced reform implementation most effectively? Immediate appearance before specific audience rather than general public, she decided with political acumen. The Senate's Administrative Justice Committee maintains session in the Central Governance Hall currently, perfect forum for constitutional complaint regarding unauthorized House action against legitimate authority. Can we reach this location without interception by Finex security forces? Lilith smiled confidently. The Central Governance Hall maintains balanced security protocols preventing single house dominance. Once inside formal governance territories, constitutional protections supersede house security authorizations. This approach aligned perfectly with balanced intervention objectives, utilizing existing governmental structures rather than circumventing them, reinforcing constitutional processes while enabling necessary reforms. Then to the Central Governance Hall, Issei agreed. Though transportation magic likely faces monitoring throughout central territories. Conventional methods, yes, Lilith acknowledged. Though I assume the Chaos STEM maintains alternatives beyond standard detection parameters. Indeed, Issei confirmed. Though visible arrival serves your constitutional positioning better than covert appearance. Excellent observation, she agreed. Visible arrival at formal governance location, utilizing official transit methods once beyond immediate containment perimeter, establishes proper procedural narrative essential for subsequent reform initiatives. Quote, their strategic thinking aligned effectively, both recognizing the importance of method and appearance in Hell's politically sophisticated environment. Reform required not just implementation but proper contextual framing to achieve lasting acceptance. With approach determined, they proceeded toward public transportation nexus connecting diplomatic territories with governmental districts. Lilith adjusted her appearance to project confident authority rather than fugitive desperation, crucial visual messaging for political repositioning following unauthorized containment. The transportation nexus operated under multi-faction security protocols, preventing House Finex from implementing unilateral access restrictions without formal Senate authorization. Here, Lilith's recognized authority as Lucifer's heir would supersede unauthorized containment orders once visible in public space. As they approached the nexus, Issei sensed security communications intensifying throughout Hell's central territories. Lilith's absence had been discovered, triggering escalation protocols. House Phoenix forces mobilized rapidly, though constitutional constraints prevented full military deployment without additional authorization. Detection confirmed, he informed her quietly. Response assets converging on transportation infrastructure. Lilith nodded, unsurprised. Expected development. Public visibility becomes increasingly important for constitutional positioning. They reached the transportation nexus just as initial security alerts began circulating among station personnel. Lilith straightened her posture, aristocratic bearing unmistakable as she stepped into full public visibility with deliberate confidence. The effect proved immediate. Stat. Ion attendants recognized Lucifer's air instantly, their reactions shifting from routine procedure to deferential attention. Security personnel noted her presence with visible confusion, clearly receiving conflicting instructions through communication channels. Lilith approached the primary transit controller with perfect aristocratic authority. Priority transportation to the Central Governance Hall, Administrative Justice Chamber. Official governmental function requiring immediate facilitation. Her tone and bearing communicated absolute expectation of compliance, the ingrained authority of Hell's highest nobility rather than requested accommodation. The controller responded automatically to this lifetime conditioning, initiating priority protocols before security countermands could process through command channels. Immediately, Lady Morningstar, the controller confirmed, activating dedicated transportation circle reserved for governmental priority transit. Security personnel received override commands from House Phoenix channels, creating visible conflict as constitutional protocols contradicted factional directives. This hesitation provided crucial operational window, the priority transportation circle activated before security intervention could be implemented. Issei and Lilith stepped onto the transportation circle as House Phoenix security forces entered the nexus from multiple access points. The timing proved perfect. Magical transportation initiated precisely as security commanders issued detention orders, the transit magic already committed to destination parameters. The transportation circle flared with crimson energy, shifting them instantly to the Central Governance Hall, Hell's primary governmental complex where constitutional authority superseded individual house jurisdiction. They materialized on formal arrival platform utilized for official governmental functions, their appearance immediately noted by Senate security maintaining constitutional protocols rather than House directives. Lilith's recognized authority registered automatically in security systems, granting appropriate access permissions while notifying relevant governmental functions of her arrival. Lady Morningstar, the Senate Guard commander acknowledged with formal respect. The Administrative Justice Committee remains in session as scheduled. Your arrival was not indicated on formal attendance registries. An administrative oversight requiring immediate correction, Lilith replied with aristocratic certainty. My presence before the committee involves urgent constitutional matters requiring immediate attention. The commander nodded with professional acceptance, recognizing legitimate authority acting through proper channels. Of course, standard escort protocols apply for committee chamber access. Quote, as formal Senate guards arranged appropriate escort formation, Issei sensed House Phoenix communication channels attempting to establish security override, FO. RTS automatically rejected by Senate systems maintaining constitutional separation between House authority and governmental function. House Phoenix security assets request emergency access protocols. Citing unspecified security concerns regarding your movement, the commander informed Lilith with professional neutrality. Standard procedures require your acknowledgement before implementation. I decline implementation authorization. Lilith responded formally. House Phoenix currently operates without Senate security mandate regarding my movements. The Administrative Justice Committee will EIVE full briefing regarding unauthorized containment operations conducted outside constitutional parameters. This formal declaration transformed security dynamics immediately. Senate protocols automatically elevated constitutional complaints above House security directives, particularly when issued by recognized authority figures citing unauthorized confinement. The commander's demeanor shifted subtly. Professional neutrality maintaining appropriate boundaries while procedural positioning adjusted to potential constitutional issue rather than routine security matter. Understood, Lady Morningstar. Senate constitutional protocols activated regarding inter-house authority complaints. Standard protective escort will proceed to committee chambers immediately. With formal escort established, They proceeded through the Central Governance Hall toward the Administrative Justice Committee chambers. The building's architecture reflected Hell's governmental evolution, ancient structures incorporating modern functionality while maintaining traditional aesthetics signifying legitimate authority. Throughout the complex, Issei observed Hell's governmental operations with interest, bureaucratic processes resembling human governments but with supernatural elements integrated seamlessly. Devils of various ranks maintained administrative functions, processing legislation, managing inter-house relations, and implementing regulatory systems governing Hell's complex society. This direct observation provided invaluable context regarding Hell's actual functioning compared to external perceptions. Most other realms viewed Hell as primarily punishment-focused domain, yet its internal operations revealed sophisticated civilization with complex governmental structures addressing diverse needs. Beyond human conception of eternal torment. Fascinating contrast between external perception and internal reality, Issei observed quietly as they proceeded through governmental corridors. Lilith nodded with understanding. Hell suffers persistent misconception regarding fundamental nature and function. Most realms perceive punishment aspects without recognizing transformative purpose and civilizational complexity. Transformation rather than simple retribution, Issei acknowledged. Core function often obscured by simplified external narratives. Precisely, she confirmed. Hell Proc's souls requiring specific developmental conditions different from Heaven's nurturing approach. Pressure, challenge, and consequence create growth impossible through gentler methods for certain soul types. This perspective aligned perfectly with the chaos system's understanding of Hell's proper function within cosmic balance, not evil counterpart to heavenly good, but complementary approach addressing different developmental requirements for soul evolution. They reached the Administrative Justice Committee chambers as session remained underway, senior representatives from all 7 houses addressing legal matters requiring inter-house adjudication. The committee's composition ensured balanced representation preventing single-faction dominance, with rotating chairmanship maintaining procedural neutrality. Senate guards announced Lilith's arrival through formal protocols, creating immediate procedural adjustment as committee members recognized Lucifer's heir's unprecedented appearance during active session. The current chairman, a dignified devil from House Astaroth known for procedural neutrality, acknowledged her presence with formal recognition. Lady Morningstar, your appearance before this committee was not scheduled in today's proceedings. What matter requires such extraordinary attendance? Lilith stepped forward with perfect aristocratic composure, her bearing CTing legitimate authority rather than factional representative. Esteemed committee members, I appear before this body to formally register constitutional complaint regarding unauthorized containment operations conducted by House Phoenix security forces against recognized governmental authority without Senate mandate or Satan Council authorization. This declaration created immediate procedural crisis. Constitutional complaints involving inter-house security operations automatically triggered specific protocols requiring formal investigation regardless of factional politics. Committee members exchanged concerned glances, recognizing significant implications transcending normal political maneuvering. This represents extraordinary accusation against noble house requiring specific evidentiary standards. The chairman noted with procedural caution. Does Lady Morningstar present formal documentation supporting such complaint? Indeed, Lilith confirmed, presenting prepared documentation with practiced efficiency. Complete records regarding unauthorized security replacement, communication restrictions, and physical containment implemented without constitutional authorization or demonstrated security justification. As committee pages distributed documentation copies to all members, the chamber doors opened to admit House Phoenix representatives responding to emergency notification regarding constitutional complaint. Their expressions revealed calculated political assessment rather than surprised innocence. They had anticipated eventual confrontation, though perhaps not through such formal governmental channels. The committee recognizes Lord Phoenix regarding pending constitutional complaint, the chairman announced, maintaining procedural neutrality despite obvious tension permeating the chamber. The Phoenix Patriarch, aristocratic devil whose flame-infused aura signified his house's legendary regenerative capabilities, stepped forward with diplomatic poise masking obvious consternation. Esteemed committee members, House Phoenix implemented precautionary security protocols regarding verified threats against Lady Morningstar's safety following her recent diplomatic initiatives. These protective measures represented responsible security management rather than unauthorized containment. Lilith's expression remained composed despite the obvious mischaracterization. Protective measures typically allow protected individuals communication access, movement within secure parameters, and consultation regarding implementation. None were provided despite multiple requests through appropriate channels. The committee chairman reviewed preliminary documentation with increasing concern. Initial evidence suggests security implementations exceeding standard CTIV protocols without required authorization documentation. The committee requires formal explanation regarding communication restrictions specifically contradicting constitutional requirements for recognized authority figures. Lord Phoenix maintained aristocratic composure despite increasingly problematic position. Communication security represented temporary measure pending threat verification. Perhaps excessive caution informed implementation parameters, though protective intent remained primary motivation. This careful non-admission acknowledged procedural overreach while attempting to maintain protective narrative rather than admitting unauthorized containment, sophisticated political maneuvering characteristic of Hell's noble houses. Before the committee could respond, the amber doors opened once more to admit unexpected participants. Sears Lucifer himself, accompanied by Seraphol Leviathan and Ajuka Beelzebub. 3 of the 4 current Satans entering administrative justice proceedings simultaneously represented unprecedented development. The entire chamber rose automatically, constitutional protocols requiring formal acknowledgement of Satan-level authority regardless of political alignment. The committee chairman appeared momentarily overwhelmed by this extraordinary development before recovering professional composure. The Administrative Justice Committee acknowledges the presence of Satan Council representatives and stands ready to transfer proceedings to appropriate jurisdictional oversight. Sears Lucifer, whose appearance combined extraordinary power with diplomatic refinement, addressed the committee with characteristic diplomatic precision. The Satan Council acknowledges the Administrative Justice Committee's constitutional jurisdiction. Regarding inter-house security complaints, we attend as observers rather than procedural interveners at this juncture. This careful positioning maintained constitutional propriety while simultaneously placing tremendous political pressure on proceedings. Satan Council observation effectively prevented procedural manipulation that might otherwise have buried legitimate complaints beneath bureaucratic maneuvering. Lord Phoenix's expression revealed recognition of significantly weakened position. What might have been manageable through normal political channels had escalated to highest government. Attention with multiple procedural safeguards preventing easy resolution. Sears approached his daughter with formal public acknowledgement, maintaining appropriate governmental decorum while conveying personal concern through subtle expressions visible only to those directly involved. The Satan Council received notification regarding constitutional complaints involving recognized authority figure containment without proper authorization, he stated for formal record. Such matters require absolute procedural transparency regardless of houses involved. This official position effectively prevented backroom resolution that might have protected House Phoenix from full accountability. Unprecedented development in Hell's typically factional politics where power often superseded procedural justice. As formal proceedings continued establishing investigative parameters, Issei observed with analytical interest. Hell's governmental response demonstrated sophisticated constitutional infrastructure beyond external perception, not lawless realm of arbitrary punishment but complex society with established processes addressing even highest-level political conflicts. Lilith maintained ECT procedural navigation throughout proceedings, presenting evidence through appropriate channels while emphasizing constitutional principles rather than personal grievance. Her approach focused on governmental integrity rather than factional advantage, positioning reform initiatives as process improvements rather than ideological impositions. Most interesting was the Satan Council's positioning, supporting constitutional process while avoiding direct intervention that might suggest factional preference. Their presence ensured procedural integrity without undermining established governmental structures, preserving institutional stability while facilitating necessary accountability. As proceedings reached preliminary conclusion with formal investigation established, Sears approached Issei directly for the first time. His appearance suggested diplomatic meeting rather than confrontational challenge, recognition of significant development requiring appropriate acknowledgement. The Chaos Vessel, I presume, he stated quietly, power carefully contained behind diplomatic courtesy. Your emergence has created considerable interest across realms. As intended, Issei acknowledged honestly. Systemic imbalances require attention regardless of established comfort with status quo. Sears studied him with extraordinary perceptiveness, assessing both the vessel and the primordial system it contained. Heaven has acknowledged your authority through formal channels. Hell traditionally responds through different approaches. Direct demonstration rather than diplomatic recognition. Issei confirmed his understanding of infernal protocols. Precisely, Sears agreed with subtle smiles suggesting appreciation for accurate cultural understanding. Though today's developments suggest potential alignment between your methods and our constitutional processes, balance requires working through existing structures where possible, Issei explained. Replacement rather than reform creates unnecessary instability when functional frameworks exist despite operational drift. The current Lucifer considered this with evident interest. A surprisingly measured approach from primordial power typically associated with fundamental disruption. Common misconception regarding the chaos system's function, Issei clarified. Balance represents primary objective rather than disorder or replacement. Existing structures often require calibration rather than elimination. A perspective potentially compatible with Hell's own evolution, Sears observed thoughtfully. The Satan administration implements progressive adjustments through constitutional means rather than revolutionary disruption. This acknowledgement suggested potential alignment between the Chaos SY's Thames balanced approach and Hell's current leadership philosophy, unexpected common ground that might facilitate reforms without unnecessary conflict. Your daughter demonstrates similar appreciation for constitutional process despite advocating necessary reforms, Issei noted, observing Lilith's continued procedural effectiveness managing committee interactions. Indeed, Sears acknowledged WITH's subtle pride beneath professional demeanor. Her approach recognizes necessity for both stability and evolution, challenging balance consistently underestimated by traditionalist factions. Their conversation continued with diplomatic precision, establishing mutual recognition without formal agreements or confrontational positioning. Sears neither opposed nor endorsed the chaos system's authority directly, maintaining strategic flexibility while acknowledging significant development requiring thoughtful response rather than reactive opposition. This approach reflected sophisticated political understanding, recognizing fundamental change while preserving governmental integrity through measured engagement rather than either submission or resistance. As formal proceedings concluded with investigative parameters established, Lilith rejoined them with professional composure masking obvious satisfaction regarding procedural victory. House Fennec's representatives departed with careful dignity covering political defeat, their unauthorized operation exposed through constitutional channels that prevented simple denial or factional dismissal. The Administrative Justice Committee will conduct formal investigation with Satan Council observation ensuring procedural integrity, she informed them with appropriate governmental formality. House Fennex faces significant accountability challenges regarding unauthorized security implementations. A constitutional outcome rather than factional victory, Sears noted with approval. Process integrity maintained despite extraordinary circumstances. Lilith acknowledged her father with appropriate formal respect before addressing Issei directly. Your intervention facilitated constitutional resolution that might otherwise have remained unavailable through standard channels. The chaos system's approach demonstrates unexpected compatibility with Hell's governmental evolution. Mutual objective alignment rather than imposed authority, Issei confirmed. Balance serves all realms when implemented through appropriate cultural frameworks. This interaction established important precedent regarding the chaos system's methodology. Working through existing governmental structures rather than imposing external authority unnecessarily. Hell's leadership recognized this approach as potentially compatible with their own evolution. Airy philosophy rather than existential threat requiring automatic resistance. The Satan Council would welcome formal consultation regarding systemic adjustments potentially serving mutual objectives. Sears suggested with diplomatic precision. Balanced implementation through constitutional processes offers stability advantages over disruptive methodologies. Consultation serves information exchange effectively, Issei agreed. Though implementation requirements remain non-negotiable regarding fundamental balance restoration. Naturally, Sears acknowledged with political understanding. Methodology rather than objective represents primary discussion focus. With preliminary positioning established, they arranged formal consultation timing through appropriate diplomatic channels. The initial crisis had transformed into potential cooperative framework, exactly the evolutionary approach the chaos system sought to implement where possible. As governmental proceedings concluded, Lilith approached Issei with more direct communication than protocol permitted during formal procedures. Your intervention created outcome exceeding optimal parameters, she acknowledged with genuine appreciation beyond political positioning. House Phoenix intended prolonged containment preventing reform momentum while building conservative coalition opposing necessary adjustments. The end. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.